50 years ago, the type of vehicle designed for off-road motorcycling as we know it now didn't exist. Enter John Penton, a pioneer determined to find the right machine to tackle the toughest terrain imaginable. He became the first importer of a lightweight off-road focused motorcycle, one that would eventually be known as KTM. But in those days, Pentons, as they were called, were the dominant machines in the woods, and they found a perfect home. Especially in the mid-1970s, when enterprising racing promoter Dave Coombs decided to build the toughest race in America, the Blackwater 100. Leading riders through 100 miles of swamps, bogs, boulders, and hill climbs through the mountains of West Virginia, the Blackwater 100 spawned an entire racing series. And the rugged, lightweight motorcycles and ATVs that evolved with it spawned an entire part of an industry. Today, we celebrate the history as the John Penton GNCC roars into Ohio. Rugged machines and rugged racers battling for victory. It's a quest began by John Penton so many decades ago, and one that continues today. RacerTV is next.
Are you ready to go GNCC Racing?
Welcome to the Wiseco John Penton GNCC. Round number 7, it is here. The AMSOIL GNCC Racing Series continues today. Caleb Russell coming off his first win at the X Factor, taking home that iconic trophy. Can he pick up another one here this weekend? Another great race from Thad Duvall, but Thad has said it himself. He's tired of being in that second place spot, looking for a win here today. And man, how about Grant Baylor? We saw great races from both of the Baylor boys, but it was Grant Baylor capturing his first podium with a third place finish. And then the XC2. The XC2, Josh Toth capturing another win on this season and doing everything he can to catch up to his teammate, Ben Kelly, who took home second and still leads the points in this early season. Third place rounding out the XC2 was Craig DeLong. And now we look at the FMF XC3. Jesse Ansley still on top in the points lead, but Jason Rains chipping away at it with a win last round. Can he pick up back-to-back wins here today? And rounding out the box in the FMF XC3, Cody Barnes, who has been consistent all season long, still looking for a win here in 2018. Well, that's going to do it. The stage is set. Now let's take it down to Jared Bolton for a track description.
Thanks, guys. Well, we return once again to the John Penton GNCC. There's a reason we keep coming back here for 29 years now, and that's because this is a phenomenal facility to host a race. It's got a little bit of something for everyone. There's some fast field sections, there's some really tight woods, there's some fast woods, and there's even motocross. We tamed down the motocross track a little bit this year, not doing anything too crazy, but we're making up for it. Sunday, we've got a 15.5-mile track for the motorcycles with a John Penton section added. Now that John Penton section, that could play a ringer. Guys like Stu Baylor, Grant Baylor, those guys that are really good at the technical stuff are going to excel in that. It's tight, it's super technical, it's going to make things really, really difficult when you get over there. When you come back over this other side, you're over here on the traditional trails that we see here at Sunday Creek. It's a lot of fun. I think everybody's going to enjoy it, and we're in for some great racing. Back to you guys.
Well, thanks, Jared. Now we know what the track looks like for today. The stage is set. Let's get things started, taking it down to the start line with Rodney Tomlin.
Thank you, Mikey, and here we are on this Wiseco John Penton starting line, and of course, as we get set to go today, beautiful blue skies above us, a little clouds in the background, and it is a hot one. And speaking of hot ones, this guy right here, a pretty hot one himself, coming off of a big race a couple of weeks ago, and the win here a year ago at John Penton. Grant Baylor, looks like the stage is set for another good one for you today, buddy.
Yeah, man, definitely. This is one of my favorite tracks, and looks like it's going to be a really good day. Got some rain, a little slippery, and, just try to get out here and do what I did last year.
Well, we'll see if he can make it happen. Can Grant Baylor make his second win as an XC1 Pro? We'll find out whether or not it's today. Let's meet our starting lineup. Hailing from Duval, Washington, on an Am Pro Yamaha. He's rough, he's rowdy, he's Ricky Russell. Up next from Fairmont, West Virginia, riding on the 523 KR4 Husqvarna, Lane Michael. A year ago, he was credited with his first XC1 Pro Class win right here at the John Penton GNCC. Can he make it 2 years in a row? From Penton, South Carolina on a Teely Energy Racing KTM, Grant Baylor. Up next, riding aboard the number 12 from Livingston, Tennessee on a Beta USA machine, Jordan Ashburn. He got his first win as an XC1 Pro here in 2010. Injury took him off the scene for a few years, but he's back again. From Logan, Ohio, on the 121 KR4 Husqvarna, Corey Buttrick. Riding aboard the number 17 from Forked River, New Jersey on a Solid Performance KTM Fly Racing KTM, Jesse Grom. And last and certainly not least, riding aboard the number 410 from Birdsboro, Pennsylvania on a factory gas Fred Andrews racing machine, Andrew DeLong. And that, ladies and gentlemen, your starting lineup for this Wiseco John Penton GNCC. The machines are firing back up, and we are 2 minutes out now from the beginning of this here race at Wiseco John Penton and Sunday Creek Raceway, where of course this is the longest standing GNCC on the circuit, celebrating our 29th occasion here in the soils of southeastern Ohio. And I'll tell you folks, this, my friends, is a great day to celebrate motorcycling all across the USA and this Memorial Day weekend as we celebrate the man John Penton himself here today, as we will have some of the roughest and toughest conditions that riders may be faced with this entire 2018 championship season. We also have a couple of hole shot awards we'll be divvying out this afternoon. They go to our XC1 and XC2, an extra $250 bonus if they can cross the hole shot stripe first. And after that, we'll see what they can do with an early lead. Same thing goes for the XC2 250 Pro class. They have an extra $100 hole shot award that they'll be vying for, as well as Ricky Towery is beginning the start sequence now as he lets these riders know 1 minute before the start of this Wiseco John Penton GNCC. the 7th round, the midway point of this 13-round series. And I'll tell you, folks, points can tighten up. They're not nearly as comfortable as their point leader, Caleb Russell, would like. He wants to spread them out, but Thad Duvall wants to catch up. We'll see what happens as we shut them down, shut them down, shut them down, shut them down. We are now less than 30 seconds away from going GNCC racing, and I got to ask you, Ohio race fans, are you ready to go GNCC racing? Pretty good, but I'm afraid with where we are in southeastern Ohio, the mecca of off-road, from what I'm concerned, and of course we've got some of the best riders on the planet here and the best race fans as well. So I'm going to give you one more shot, Ohio. I'm going to ask you one more time. Are you ready to go John Penton GNCC racing? 10 seconds, and road number 1, the XC1 Pro, will be off and rolling here at the Wiseco John Penton GNCC. The run 14, Josh Strang, out of Australia, former champion and a winner here before, grabs the early lead. Thad Duvall in second. Caleb Russell looks like he may be back in that number 3 spot. XC250 Pro, Craig DeLong, Sam Evans, Cole Madison, Austin Lee, Joseph Zafaro, Liam Draper, Joshua Toad, Brendan Riordan, Harrison Helmick, Mike Wachowski, Devin Welch, Scott Grills, Brian DeSalt, Ryder Lafferty, Evan Smith, Anthony Federico, Tyler Brand, Benjamin Kelly, Zach Nolan, Zach Hayes, Braxton McGee, Nick Davis, Trevor Barrett, Jonathan Grohr, and Jonathan Johnson in 10 seconds. And the XC2 off and rolling. Look at this, a drag race down. It's 9:27. Nick Davis steals the whole shot award away, but the early lead will go to Craig DeLong. Davis on the factory gas picking up the extra money, but the early lead again to DeLong. FMF XC3, Jesse Ansley, Cody Barnes, Ryan Slopko, Ryan Lojak, Alex Teagarden, Colin Keegan, Jason Langenbeck, and Jason Raines in 10 seconds. Jason Rain. Oh, Alex Teagarden, the 309 Coastal Racing. Husqvarna grabbing the early lead and the whole shot here in the FMF XC3 as we move to the Open A. Levi Keller, Connor Smith, Ben Parsons, Jaron Williams, Alan Jones, Eric Grice, Tucker Smith, Eli Cradleball, Maxwell Randolph, Tyler Soriano, Joshua Lee. 10 seconds. Zach Dotson, Matt Servin, also Coke Beckert, Dalen Ely, Jason Lipscomb, and Bryce Coster. Oh, little carnage in first turn. Everything's going to be all right, it looks like, though. 36 machine of Connor Smith from Denver, North Carolina on a Palmer Motorsports AXA Mike Annette AXA Financial Advisors Mike and Annette Lyons sponsored ride. 258, Chase Hayes, Dakota DeVore, Blake Henry, Matthew Davis, Owen Geis, Landon Bruner, Nathan Rector, Noah Clark, Brewer Cawley, JoJo Bowden, Josh Farrell, Andy Matheny, Matthew Kiefer, Jeff Lance, Simon Johnson, and Reese Bruner ready to roll in 10 seconds. Nathan Rector, great start for him as he gets the early lead. Rector out of Rogersville, Missouri on a Marionville Power Sports Moose Racing Enduro Engineering backed ride. We go to the 4-stroke gate lights. Connor Keegan, Johnny Manera, Michael DeLosa, Justin Murphy, Eli Childers, Kristen McManus, Adam Hollenkamp, Hunter Williams, Brody Johnson, Blake Grindstaff, Riley Johnson, Russell Smith, Bolton B. Robb, Louis Vendrell. 10 seconds. Brendan Poling, Tyler Orfield, Nathan Saving, Dylan Carano, Michael Nutter, Tracy Hall, Adam Parker, Tyler Daniel, Jacob Chrisman, Nathan Davis, Brandon Keegan, Ryan Neff, Nick O'Brien, Braden Moore. 28 riders, 4-stroke A lights. And it's 4-6-3 of Nathan Davis from Vail, North Carolina on the HBD Graphics Moose Racing FMF Kendaback machine. 200A class, Joe Marsh, Benjamin Wright, Tyler Centrino, Zachary Davidson, Michael Beeler, Dylan Zimpel, Chase Koval, Ty England, Landon Lynn, Ryder LeBlanc, Randall Irvin, and Travis Raynaud in 10 seconds. The 513 Ryder LeBlanc from New Florence, Pennsylvania on an MXTire.com Bell Helmets EKS brand machine gets the early lead in that 200A class. As we check in with the Junior A25 Plus class, Andrew Boggs, Casey Belt, Devin Burks, Nick Mellinger, Dustin Ulrich, Scott Cunningham, Daniel Palmatier, Joseph McCarty, 10 seconds. Brady Stefanik, Colton Hawk, Jesse Kildlow, and Sammy Doris. That's actually Jesse Kildo. And that 426 is Joseph McCarty. Getting off to a great start here. And McCarty will maintain the early lead through turn 2. The Vet A30 Plus class, Sam Forrester, Jared Hoffman, Louis Oleon, Geraldo's Milo, Eddie Lojack Jr., Ryan Cunningham, Surly Amancio, Ryan Burkfield, Andrew Matusik, and Bill Zabindi in 10 seconds. .360 Surly Amancio from New Milford, Connecticut, grabbing the early lead as we go to the Senior A40 Plus class. Shotgun Sean Remington, Christian Broombaugh, Frank Tussle, Gregory Richardson, William Lackey, Frank Messina, John Beaver, Bob Bergman, Rick Burton, Rod Marshall, Larry Sylvia, Jimmy Dexter, and Corey Parlin. 10 seconds. Eight, 9-4, Corey Parlin from Schoolcraft, Michigan. By the way, that was Jeremy Dexter. I called him something else. 894, Corey Parlin out of Schoolcraft, Michigan, though, taking the early lead in this one. 4-stroke B lights. Philip Arnold, Garrett George, Lucas Crawshaw, Andy Smith, Jacob Gibbons, Garrett Robertson, Nicholas Daniels, Tyler Daniels, Gatlin Welburn, Zach Maley, TJ Fine, Tyler Sylvia, Jake Easler, Mac Reimer, Tyler Gentry, and Billy Saliga in 10 seconds. .715 Mac Reimer from Saxonburg, PA on the Lojack Cycle Fly Racing Get the Tires Back machine. Look at that, we got dust. Dust coming out of turn 2 right now. 250B, Grant Kirkman, Cody Moria, Kyle Prismont, Jake Borum, Philip DeGenius, Jake Kelly, Sean Cochran, Michael Hickson, Ian Flynn, Jack McMakin, Robert Whitlock, Cole Whitmer, Zachary Sanders, Andrew Coffey, Alex Burkfield, and Jared Messer. 10 seconds. .518 Cole Whitmer from Amity, Pennsylvania on an Ampro Yamaha, backed by Waynesburg Yamaha and Answer Racing. 200B class, Todd Fouts, Tanner Kirkman, Jacob Harmon, Jonathan Matheny, Ty Miles, Ryan Richards, Bailey Parker, and Colby Davis. 10 seconds. 136 on the machine. We'll try to get his riding number. 607, Colby Davis from Berkshire, New York on a Steve Hatch Racing alias Maxxis tire spec machine. Vet B 30+ class coming up next. 10 seconds. Wes Morris, Larry Hopper, Gary Bissang, Chris Sandifer, David Murray, Steve Lambruno, Ross Kennedy, Neil Hood, Jordan Overfield, Justin Ramsey, Matt Modick, Robert Baker, Josh Nicole, Ben Conaway, and Joshua Dorman as they're off in the Vet B 30+ class, 15 riders. Is that the 911? Yes, it is. Ben Conaway out of Howard, Ohio on a Team Conaway Jacobs Moto Point View back machine. Open B, Matt Sorge, Michael Davis, Jordan Lawson, Ryan Kerr, Trevor Williams, Evan Young, Dalton Beccarelli, Dominic Jarvis, Nathan Pinkerton, Matt Bruffy, Jake Stevenson, also Zachary Daniels, Jacob Barnes, Joshua Webb. 10 seconds. Zach Miles, Lincoln Betts, Anthony Herring, Cody Burton, Marty Peak, J.J. Goldick, and Drew Norris. Oh, the 28, 328, Ryan Kerr from Westerville, Ohio, is your early lead in that Open B bike class as we go to the Senior B 40+ class. Mark Proper, Leon Whitaker, Devin Ferguson, Randy Revore, Paul Hedges, Jason Wilson, Jason Stickley, Joel Maurice. 10 seconds. Gene Switta, Tillman McDaniel, Darren Darmos, and Scott Matheny. Our final row off and rolling, 241 riders on the racetrack now as we roll through this Wiseco John Penton GNCC. The 424, Jason Stickley from McDonald, Pennsylvania on a Nova Racing Stiller Motorsports Stickley hauling machine, actually getting the early lead in that final start. And of course, my friends, we got a big one going on here today. This should be a great midway point race as far as GNCC Racing is concerned. Will the points tighten up? Will they stretch out? Will Grant Baylor get a win? Or what about Stu Baylor? Stick around. GNCC Live continues after this.
We handle your races, your jumps, and your trails. Isn't it time you give your daily driver the same love? AMSOIL's Signature Series Synthetic Motor Oil delivers 75% more engine protection against horsepower loss and wear than required by a leading industry standard. AMSOIL also offers a full family of ATV, UTV lubricants, giving you above and beyond fortification for your weekday and weekend vehicles. AMSOIL, devoted to protection. We handle your races, your jumps, and your trails. Isn't it time you give your daily driver the same love? AMSOIL's Signature Series Synthetic Motor Oil delivers 75% more engine protection against horsepower loss and wear than required by a leading industry standard.
Lucas Oil Pro Motocross returns to the legendary High Point Raceway in Mount Morris, Pennsylvania for the 42nd annual Red Bull High Point National on Saturday, June 16, located just 5 miles north of Morgantown off I-79 exit 1. Be trackside when the dirt flies. Go to highpointmx.com. Feel the roar of speed-only motocross ring. The races start at 1 p.m. Saturday, June 16 at High Point Raceway. Visit highpointmx.com and we'll see you at the races June 16th.
I'm a sore loser.
I'm a sore loser. Losing is not an option for me.
Be the best.
The best. The best.
You have to have the best equipment under the hood.
That's why I
only use
Cometic products in my engines.
Cometic gasket.
Cometic gasket.
Cometic gasket.
Cometic gasket, a superior quality gasket
For those of us who demand the highest level of performance.
We are American motorcyclists. We are members of the American Motorcyclist Association. racers, fans, and crew. We come together for this sport we love, to race together, to grow together. We start young and not so young. We race motorcycles and ATVs. We become friends, we become family. We compete for weekend bragging rights and national championships. We make memories on the toughest off-road courses in the country and on the best motocross tracks in the world. Some of us aspire to the speed and poise of road racing or the fierce competitiveness of American flat track, and we honor our greatest champions in the AMA Motorcycle Hall of Fame. Through it all, we cheer, we win, and we lose. We are racing. We are the AMA. Race with us. Be part of the greatest sport in the world. Be an American motorcyclist. Join us today at www.amajoin.com/join-now.
The AMSOIL GNCC series on RacerTV is brought to you in part by AMSOIL, the first in synthetics. Rocky Mountain ATV MC, get ready. And Monster Energy, unleash the beast.
Gallagher. Try that again. Welcome back to GNCC Live. Mikey Wayne's here with Johnny Gallagher here at the historic Wiseco John Penton. Getting a look there, some of the footage we've got out here at the track today. And I believe we're going to jump back in. You guys probably saw it right before we went to commercial. You saw those leaders coming through the Monster Mile. And I believe we're going to take a look at a replay there with Thad Duvall leading things.
Yeah, Mikey, we had those starts too as well, and when they cut to that, we'll kind of voice over those and let you know exactly what was going on. But this looks like some footage from this morning. Looks like the morning amateur race, the 10 a.m. race, which was quite interesting. Bottlenecks everywhere, and our overall winner lapping the entire field, the local boy, last name Kello, I believe it was?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and it was, I mean, that was incredible. We had 3 Sportsman A riders in the top 3, which is not typical. We may see one once in a while, but man, to have 3 out of the Sportsman A was pretty. And a wild finish in the WXC. Mackenzie Tricker picking up her first win. We'll talk to her later today. We're ready now to take a look at those replays here, I believe. Oh, the XC1 start. So how about this XC1 start? Thad Duvall, or excuse me, sorry, Josh Strang taking the whole shot there.
Followed closely by Thad Duvall.
Exactly. And third out of the line, I think, was Caleb Russell. He's further back now. And then out of the XC2 whole shot, believe it was Craig DeLong picking up this one.
And it looks to be Craig DeLong there with a great start, quick on the button, and first to the stripe.
Clean.
Oh, it looks like possibly Austin Lee or one of the Honda guys might have nabbed him on the outside there for that whole shot award.
Fight for it.
Here's the XC3 start. You see it looks like Jason Raines with the quickest kicker foot, but does he get to the line first? We'll see here in just a moment. He's looking for that extra little bit of money, and Alex Teagard might have snaked him on the inside there. Here we go, Mikey, with that Monster Mile shot.
Here we go, the Rocky Mountain ATV MC rapid replay of this Monster Mile. You can see right there, Thad Duvall working out in front of this one. Our second place rider, as they were all coming through, we believe that is Grant Baylor right there in the number 2 spot, correct, Johnny?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now we see Josh Strang sneaking through there in 3rd, and not sure who that rider was in 4th. It looked to be possibly Lane Michael, Caleb Russell back there in that 7th place spot, followed by Trevor Bollinger. Ricky Russell was in there as well, but there was another rider. We weren't sure who. It was not Ricky Russell in 4th at the time, but they did say he was in 4th. There's Stu Baylor kind of bringing up a little bit of the rear there. It was fairly quick off the start there, and he's just belonged along, and there's Jesse Grom as well working his way through.
So now we're going to be taking a look at these riders, coming through this mulch pile here in just a moment as we watch.
This is about the 14-ish mile marker that we're looking at here. We last saw them in that shot that we just did the replay of at the 6-mile marker within the Monster Mile. So about 8 miles of course between here and there, and man, a dynamic course this one is for sure.
And before we were able to start the race, or before we started the race today, we did have a chance to catch up with some of the pro riders, get their input on the John Penton, get their input on this 2018 season.
Yeah, the course, it's going to be nice. It's at least a long course. The past 2 or 3, they've been kind of short, so we've done more laps. So this one right now, it's looking like it's going to be, a little over 15, but we'll have to kind of see what they end up doing, maybe with the weather a little bit, but hopefully it should be all right. I mean, it rained a little bit, but be a little slick, but overall I think it should be a really good racetrack.
I just got back all muddy, but yeah, I'm super excited. It's pretty muddy, slick, just conditions I really excel in for sure. So I'm excited, and at the end of the day, I hate the mud, but I ride really good in it. So I grew up riding it, and I have a lot of fun riding in it. So I'm really looking forward today. I feel like some of the tracks are going to be really good out in the fields and in the sun and stuff, but the woods is going to be pretty gnarly. And then, I biked the John Penton section again this morning, and, it's about 4 to 5 miles long. And yesterday, cycling it was pretty gnarly, like one of the gnarlier John Penton sections we've had. And then I did it again this morning, and the whole time I'm thinking, man, it's going to be a long John Penton section. It's super slick, muddy, it's pretty gnarly. And
so far, so good. We had a good bit of rain earlier in the week, so that kind of shut us down on doing so much riding early on. But then last couple of days were good, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think this is a good place to get some momentum built, just to get the wheels turning for the rest of the year to go smoother. I love this place. I love these conditions. Of course, I wish it was raining right now, just to make things a little bit more interesting. But overall, it's going to be a good day. It's going to be technical. Obviously, there's a lot of places that are going to be really slick. A lot of places are going to be pretty good, and it's going to make for great racing. I'm thrilled to be out here and ready to start stretching some throttle cables. Yeah, and if it's not muddy, it's extremely hot. So again, we're in the middle. It's not terribly hot, but it's just going to be one of those days it's humid. I mean, that stuff, somehow or another, this valley has like 100% humidity. It never rolls out. It definitely holds on to it. So that's going to be one of the toughest factors, I think, for today. But either way, it's going to be a good medium for all conditions considered.
I would say it was the first race that I met Jack Penton, and obviously being the John Penton, it's we actually got supported by Jack Penton through the amateur ranks, Grant and I both, and we've been with KTM ever since. I've been racing professionally for KTM for 8 years now, and before that, I had never ridden anything but a KTM. So, and I think it's really cool the way that KTM still kind of embraces this race and does the finishing awards. I can remember coming here, and obviously I wasn't getting a finishing award, I was getting on the podium, but it's still cool. Everybody gets a little something from this race that's on a KTM, and I think it's it's definitely cool. I can remember coming out here and Juha Salminen coming down to the starting line, and we actually started right here over my shoulder then when GNCCs were much smaller, but we started right over my shoulder here, and I can remember it pouring down rain on the starting line in 2004, and Juha coming down and shaking the kids' hands in a 65 class. So that's neat, that's cool, and obviously that's racing. It's a family sport, and it's awesome to see stuff like that.
Yeah, I looked at the track like you said on I looked at it on Saturday, and it looked really good then. And with the rain, it made it a little slick yesterday, so I wasn't able to get out there much. But the sun's out now and it's warm. I think it's going to tack up for a great race.
So what do you think is going to be the bigger element, the track or the heat today?
I don't think it's that hot. We've certainly raced here, and it's been a lot hotter. So, but it's definitely hotter than any race we've raced so far this year. So it's just a matter of getting used to it. But I don't think I'll have a problem. It's pretty hot in North Carolina too. So yeah, for sure, it's humid out here. I guess with the rain, it spiced it up a little bit. But like I said, I don't think it's nothing we can't handle.
Yeah, I was pretty excited when it started to rain last night. And I'd just make it a little more technical and challenging for us front guys, and like Jordan or he said, spice it up some, and give us all an opportunity to get up to the front. I walked some of it earlier this morning, and I was out helping some of the youth riders. I mean, there's going to be some bad spots and bottlenecks here and there, and I'm really looking for a top 5. I'd really like that. I'd be happy with that.
Well, Johnny, the thing that kind of stands out to me, the thing that you even said when you came in here, the word gnarly. We heard that from Thad. The humidity. So, man, taking what they said and your experience yesterday, what are your thoughts on? I mean, that seems to me dead on.
Well, it's kind of hard to say with this course because as dynamic as this race course is, there is not a race course on the face of the planet that can transform more quickly. It can go from great to horrible in about 15 raindrops, and it can go from horrible to amazing in about 20 minutes of sunshine and wind. So what we're looking at right now, this is a live drone shot down over the Sunday Creek Motocross facility that's obviously held some epic motocross races over the years, from ATV Nationals to with everything from regionals for Loretta's and all that kind of stuff here. They've got, you know, a great motocross facility here. That's what we're looking down over now. Then we see out as it stretches out, you know, the fields look dry. What you can't see is, see all those trees down in there? They're blocking the sun and the wind from being able to get in there. And I'll tell you what, this John Penton clay here in Millfield, Ohio, as a good friend of mine, Ben Weathers, puts it, it's like grease on glass. He says you just, there's nothing here. I mean, you'd almost need to spike your shoes if you want to walk around in it. It's some of the slickest clay on the face of the planet, and that's what these guys are racing through. It wreaked havoc with our morning race, wreaked havoc with the youth race, and now here in the afternoon, we'll see exactly how it all pans out.
And we're taking a look at the track map now. We've got about a 15-mile course for these guys today, adding in that John Penton section. And I believe we're going to be able to see a little highlight here of where exactly we've got our camera shots. There we go. Boom. See the white kind of circles, I guess you could call them. That's where we've got cameras set up. The black box, that is going to be where we're getting those drone shots. So a big portion of the finish line, as well as the motocross section. And then I believe we've actually, well, you know, we've got one also down at the Monster Mile there as well. So a very, very big course, Johnny. I mean, we're typically, you know, somewhere around a 12-mile course, give or take. So, you know, what do you think, how is that going to play into today's race, the fact that you've got a 15-mile course and given the weather and the track conditions?
Lap times. The key is going to be, it's, you know, depending on how this plays out, exactly what the conditions are. You can see right here in the Monster Mile, this is just some slick, snotty, nasty Ohio clay that is going to reach up and grab onto tire knobbies and, you know, fork guards and fenders and everything else, and just make those bikes heavy, 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 and slippery, slippery, slippery. So a lot's going to depend on lap times. Obviously, these guys kind of build their pit strategy as the race goes on, and that becomes a big part of passing and trying to open up gaps, you know, especially with the leaders. So that will definitely play into both pit strategy and race strategy today as we figure out exactly how these lap times play out. So, you know, we should know here in just a few minutes what lap 1 is, but again, we are missing part of the course on lap 1, so we won't have an exactly completely accurate description as far, or idea as far as what the lap times will be, but we'll know here real soon. Again, looking at this Monster Mile coming down this creek and turning it up this snotty little uphill. So it's this is a little bit more, you know, those drone shots, they show us how pretty this place is and how great the dirt looks. Well, 24 hours ago, if you watched the ATV 1 p.m. race, the torrential downpours came and turned this place into nothing but a skating rink for the next several hours, and even in through this morning with more rain last night, making it, as you said, you know, the youth riders had they probably had by far the worst conditions of anybody all weekend, which is unfortunate because obviously those guys, a lot of heart, but those little wheels, they just don't always have the grip that they need to get them up these hills. And I heard during the race, Mikey, you were announcing, and they were saying, parents, if you're looking for your children, just so you know, none of them, we have no reports of any injured riders, just a whole lot of riders stuck out there and a lot of tears flowing. So I think, you know, Mike, you hate to say it, but I think there's going to be some tears flowing this afternoon as well.
Yeah, and I think the big thing we saw in the youth race as well as the AM race was just those time gaps in between what seemed about just about everybody. I don't think we're going to see that necessarily this afternoon in the 3-hour, but one of the things you mentioned, Johnny, was that pit strategy. And that, I think, played a huge factor in the last round between Caleb and Thad. They had different pit strategies there in the end, and I think it kind of affected Thad not being able to make up that gap there at the end of it. So that's going to be real interesting to see how those guys play that one out today.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that's something, like I said, it's one of those things that separates them. They try to use that as strategy, and they you know, it's a lot easier to chase a rider when you can see him. So if you can use that pit strategy and get a little gap. What a cool shot this is, Mikey. You know, it almost makes you feel like you're here, but better, you know, because you get to see it from above everything. And now, folks, this is what you call a bottleneck in the making. This is when you know when you are arriving at the bottleneck, you see the smoke, you smell the clutch, and you just hear engines revving, and these riders are saying, look, man, we just made it down this terrible creek with all these rocks, and now you're telling us we got to climb this hill? This guy's just had enough for the moment. He's going to catch his breath. He's going to have a little rest. He's going to
talk to himself a little bit.
Yeah, because here's the thing. You know, we see this on camera, but pretty much guarantee you that this is not the first time that this gentleman has been having to push his machine. You know, he's obviously frustrated, out of breath, probably sick to his stomach from pushing that heavy 250-pound dirt bike, and he just says, I just need a minute. It's, you know, the humidity in this valley and in this booth right now is just off the charts. We might We might need to take one of these sides down, see if we can get some air flowing through here, because it's pretty horrible at the moment.
Adam Gordon said, our producer said, would you guys like a fan in the future? I said, yeah, absolutely. Bring us a fan, something.
A fan, some ice, some air. You know, just some air would be great. But here we see Johnny Campbell and Austin Lee's dad. They're checking. They're saying, hey, 15 miles, how long is this going to take? Well, I don't know. Do we have time for a sandwich? Pretty sure we do. All right, what do you want on yours? 15 minutes since they went into the Monster Mile, and we have not seen them. So obviously we're going to see some epically long lap times. But in the meantime, you guys get to check out these cool rigs. There's the Teely Energy rig for Grant Baylor and Stu Baylor. Grant, we believe, is in that second place position. Sorry, third place position. No, second, wasn't it?
Yes, second
place position. And hey, you were asking if we were sure that was Grant. Let me tell you a little something. Here's a trick. You guys always ask how I identify these guys. Grant is easy to identify. Look at the rear fender. If his butt is sitting on it, it's Grant. Stu does not sit on his rear fender. Grant sits on his rear fender.
You're
so
right.
Same gear, same bike. If you can't read the numbers and you can't tell by the riding styles, the easiest way to tell is when you have Grant Baylor, he's going to be sitting on his rear fender. Stu will either be standing up or possibly sitting a little further forward on the bike. Nobody understands how Grant can ride a bike that way, but he makes it work for him. And tell you what, he's a guy that's had some good weekends. And one thing I was going to say when we came back from those interviews, as we watch these guys kind of struggle through here, a rider that could potentially have a good day today and really bringing back some memories. A rider who got, I believe, his only ever win, but I know he won here in the tragic mud conditions of 2010. Corey Buttrick, hometown boy. I mean, you don't get much any closer. Obviously, Thad Duvall, they say, is a hometown boy. This is a hometown race for him, and he is, and he's got all of his fans here. But this is not Thad's hometown. Thad is from Williamstown, West Virginia, probably 45 minutes to maybe almost an hour from here. Corey Buttrick is literally from here, like up the road, grew up riding this course. So if anybody knows this place and knows the conditions, Corey B is one. He's been looking to kind of have a renaissance season, a comeback, and really get things going in the right direction for him. And I think we got an update here.
We got an update.
Yeah,
here,
finally back here, GNCC Racing. I'm excited about it because we got a good season under our belt. I mean, results-wise, not really where we were wanting to be, but either way, we're building on it. Each round, getting closer and closer. So I'm excited to, for today and obviously for the hometown race. Just thrilled. It's so cool to know just about everybody around the track. I mean, that's the best feeling in the world. Nothing will keep you more pumped up than that. But yeah, I'm just excited to build the rest of the year. We've been working hard, and we've had a really, really good program going. So I'm excited to see the results pay off. I know it's a matter of time. Going to be a boy.
I was just testing you, man.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah, really, really excited. It's been everything that we wanted. I'm so happy for her, and I know she's going to be a great mother. And obviously, it's just exciting. It's a different. New chapter in life, so I'm thrilled.
From the John Penton section, real quick, we just got this from Jeff Russell. Say exit the John Penton section. It is Thad Duvall out front. Then right behind him is Grant Baylor, and a big gap back to third place, which finally came out with a tree hanging off his bike, was Caleb Russell.
Sounds like things are getting pretty hectic over there in the John Penton section. We got lumberjacks. They're just taking trees with them. Well, we did see Caleb was back in about that 7th place position. And I tell you what, we had originally said that Caleb was 3rd on the start. That was not actually Caleb. Caleb was back near the back. His bike did not fire up. So I'm assuming that he never did quite make those moves up into the front of the pack there, because he was back in 7th when we saw him at the 6-mile marker. Now up to 3rd, but with the big time gap, you got to believe some things really went wild there in that John Penton section. And hey, that's what it's all about. This is old school GNCC racing. We're throwing in an old school GNCC section, and the old school GNCC guy himself, John Penton, is here. He's witnessing that, and I guarantee if we could get John on the mic right now, he'd say the tougher the better. I used to have to ride these bikes with no suspension that weighed 850 pounds, and I rode them across the country through the woods, and these guys only have this little, couple hundred acres they have to traverse. Let them have it.
One of those, the age-old adage, I had to go to school uphill both ways, but that...
You know what, I tell you what, Mike, we've all heard that, but I honestly believe John Penton may have actually walked to school uphill both ways. I don't know how it's possible, but in the snow, and in July, it was still snowing wherever he lived because he is one tough dude. 92 years old, I believe.
I think so.
Out here today. They presented him with an award this morning. Great little ceremony. They had a bunch of the riders go up and take a picture with him. Follow social media. I'm sure that stuff will be poking up. You know, and John Penton really truly is the American motorcycling story. You know, he is the guy that, you know, just really, when everybody said, oh, that's dumb, you can't race these bikes off-road, you can't compete with the Japanese manufacturers, all the other stuff, you know, John Penton, which ultimately, as we talked about, Stu Baylor talked about in his interview, the Penton brand is what spawned KTM. Eventually, they're still tied together all these years later, and he was a man who had a passion for all things motorcycling and all things two-wheeled, but specifically off-road racing. And all these years later, we have this event that keeps his namesake. So what better way to honor a tough man who had to break down so many barriers and overcome so many obstacles than to throw stuff like this at these guys and say, hey, John Penton could have done this no problem on an old Penton motorcycle that was, you know, again, 450, 500 pounds with a modified street tire, and he would have made it work.
Oh, absolutely. And I tell you what, the footage right there of this, what looks like to us a small hill section, not at all. And we just got an update. Sounds like Caleb's 27 seconds back on second place now, which was Grant Baylor right?
Second, they said he is on the rear wheel of Thad Duvall. So Thad Duvall, the somewhat local boy, leading the way, and Grant Baylor, who's really been on a tear lately, as Rodney Tomlin to join us back in the booth here. But Grant Baylor, you know, this is one of those things you kind of you talk about, but you never think is going to happen in your sport, where somebody's kind of, you know, and I'm just going to speak my mind here, and this isn't anything against Grant. He'd kind of fallen off the radar, you know, had a terrible season last year with some injuries and all kinds of stuff. Came back, wasn't really ready due to a preseason injury, but started racing anyway, and his results were, you know, he was just kind of not really there. He wasn't posting the results that we were expecting from Grant, was getting a little bit stronger, and then randomly just decided he was going to have surgery. He had a hand injury or a wrist injury, went and had surgery. The very next weekend comes back and races at another series and gets on the podium with a second place finish and wins a whole bunch of tests. Comes back at the last GNCC and finishes, I wasn't there, I left, but I believe he was third, if I'm not mistaken. Gets on the podium for the first time in 2 years, I think, here at GNCC.
Actually, he won here.
Oh, yeah.
Got the podium, and then by default, because of the penalties handed down to Thad Duvall, was awarded the win here last year. And in talking with him on a personal note, he would really like to redeem himself on that. He in this weekend, and is a good weekend for him to do it, especially after coming off that race. He was in 7th place at one point in that race, and he went from 7th place up to 3rd, gaining so much time in so many positions. Oh, there's Thad Duvall in the mulch pit now, as he gained so much time and was all the way up to that 3rd place position. Unbelievable, turning faster lap times than the leaders in that race. And there he is, a few seconds behind Thad right now. But in the grand scheme of things, that right there is pretty tight still with Grant Baylor, and we know how hard he pushes as the race wears on.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a closer. He gets stronger as the race goes on, and definitely pretty crazy to see, though. You know, Rodney, we're talking about all the success he's had in the last, basically the last 4 races he's done have been aside from his win here last year, which, you know, again, he feels he needs to redeem himself, but I don't think he does. He won the race. I mean, ultimately there was a rules infraction, although unintentional on Thad's part. They both rode a great race, and, you know, Grant was awarded the win, so this year he wants to go and do it legit. Lane Michael, that was Lane that I saw that we thought was Ricky Russell that they were saying. So Lane up there in that 4th place spot. I think, I got to be honest, I think we missed Josh Strang there. There was definitely another bike in between there that we missed on camera because I saw him come around the tree. May not have been Strang because that is Strang right there. But there was definitely another rider coming. Nope, sorry, that is Ricky Russell. So I think that might have been Josh Strang that came through ahead of Lane. We'll see when they check in here after they traverse this motocross track here in just a minute. But, you know, one thing I thought was kind of funny, Rodney, Ricky Russell and Caleb Russell have been getting all of the starts this year, and they were last and second to last when they took off the line today. There we see Trevor Bollinger and another rider to the right of our screen. Can't quite tell who that was. Looked to be in moose gear. We'll see who it is when they check in. And there is... that possibly Craig DeLong. That is our XC2 leader, all the way up to the back, and that is going to put him well up within the top 5 overall, I would say. And there is Thad. There is Grant. So we said a couple seconds, maybe a couple inches, Rodney.
Yeah, it gets tight as we get into this section. And That's what we're talking about. When they came out of the John Penton section, they were wheel to wheel. And whenever you take into consideration the grand scheme of things, that's a very tight race we got going through there. And even with Caleb Russell, knowing his speed and his determination, the 15, 20 seconds that he's back, that's not too much for him to overcome either, I don't think.
No, I think this race is going to become a little more challenging as they get into lappers. There's going to be some bottlenecks. There's going to be some gnarly sections. Again, what we're seeing here is not indicative of what's hiding down in the trees. And how about these drone shots, Rodney? This is pretty exciting. We feel like we get to run right next to these guys. And I'll tell you what, let me finish this thought before they finish this lap. We keep talking about Grant. He's coming off hand surgery. The last 4 weeks are straight off of a hand or wrist surgery that have made him the bionic man that took him from, in many cases, not even in the top 10 to battling for wins and podiums week in and week out.
That's funny because I was joking around with someone after the last race and I was calling him Bionic Baylor.
Yeah, Bionic Baylor. There you go. You should get the butt patch because this dude has come from out of obscurity the last couple of months to be battling for podiums and race wins week in and week out. There is Josh Strang behind Caleb Russell. We definitely did miss him on camera. That is him there in the background. Caleb Russell in 3rd, so Josh Strang will be in 4th. Caleb's got his head down trying to charge. He's got to make up that gap. He got a little left out on this sprint that Thad Duvall put in early, and Grant Baylor hung on, dragged him with him, and said, hey, boys, we're going to the front. We were 1-2 last year, and we're going to try and do it again. Caleb Russell putting his head down, trying to make up that gap, and just behind him we should see the 114. What do we call him? The freight train of Josh Strang?
Yeah, the freight train, Josh Strang. That's it. And, wow. You guys were talking about the heat and humidity. You think that's going to change any of the tactics today? Because, like you said, there's not a lot of sunshine down in the woods, but I think the humidity's still there, and it's got to be power zapping. Are they going to try to reserve a little bit of power for the end, you think?
Yeah, I mean, 3 hours with this heat and humidity, I think hydration is the key. As we see Ricky Russell, the 212 Ampro Yamaha. Again, normally a quick starter up in, we believe he should be. I think we missed Lane Michael and Bollinger and a couple others on camera here. We're missing a bunch of guys.
Lane Michael is checked in 5th place. Actually, we're checking in with Ricky Russell in 6th place.
Okay, well, we must have lost Bollinger there somewhere because he was ahead of Ricky when we saw him last camera shot. He dropped off, or unless we got a transponder not working. But Ricky's showing in, you said 6th place then, Ricky?
Yeah, right
so
now.
He was, a rider that we normally see up in a podium position early in the race because of his good starts. And today was not one of those days.
Jordan Ashburn checked in on the number 12 in 7th place. Trevor Bollinger 8th aboard the 739.
There we go. So there's Bollinger. Maybe a stop in the pits. There we see the 410 gas machine of Andrew DeLong. Got that water bottle hanging. So these guys, there's your answer, Rodney. You think if they're worried about this being a 3-hour-long race in the heat, he has stopped in the pits to get a water bottle, or at least slowed down in the pits to get a water bottle. And look who's right behind him, a rider we expected to see up front and who is well back in the pack, much farther than we expected, the 514 of Stu Baylor. And something looks wrong with Stu Baylor. His body posture and the way he's riding tells me that he is not at all on the charge. There we go. He's got a messed up front end. He's trying to slap those bars and figure out exactly why his bike is not towing straight. And I'll tell you, it probably is a case of either going down or having a collision with the tree.
Well, I tell you, that John Penton section, talking to a few folks, actually pro riders, one pro rider looked at me and said, I was walking the pro section, I looked at it.
Ben Kelly, here's our XC2 guys coming through. I didn't mean to cut you off, Rodney. They were just showing it. It looked like Kelly was in for a water bottle. I think a lot of these guys are really staying on top of their hydration today. So you were asking how that was going to play out. I think we're going to see these guys spending a lot of time in the pit saying, hey, give me something to drink.
There you go. But I was talking to one of the pro riders, and they said that John Penton section, I was looking at sections, and one hill, I said to myself, I don't even know if I can climb that hill. How are the A and B riders going to do it, So, I mean, obviously they threw some wild curves at him out there, John Penton section this year.
Yeah, and there was talk of not even running that section because of the conditions with the rain last night, and then they decided, you know what? This is a tough section. We're going to try it for at least a lap, see how it pans out, and if it holds up, we'll keep running it. So we'll keep you guys updated on that. As of right now, we are told that the Penton section is still in. They did traverse it the first lap for sure. We know that. We got an update, or Rodney, you got an update of those guys coming out of that Penton section. We'll see if it's able to hold up well enough to keep these guys going through it all day. We see some of our XC2 riders coming through. Actually, that is Jesse Grom, who now rides XC1, and Evan Smith there behind him, who is XC2. Don't know if we have an update on our top riders in XC2 yet, Rodney. Who do we got?
Craig DeLong leading this one on the 8 out of Morgantown, Pennsylvania. A 52-second lead over Josh Toth, the 206 machine. Liam Draper, the 198, a good start for this rider out of New Zealand as he is third. The 347, Evan Smith, running in the number 4 spot. He's out of Jefferson, Georgia. Mike Witkowski rounds out the top 5. You got Ben Kelly back in the number 6 spot aboard the 530 machine. Nick Davis, the 927 Gas, backed by Fred Andrews Racing, is your 7th place position. Nick, if I'm not mistaken, actually stole the whole shot away, maybe the award away, but I believe it was the 8 of Craig DeLong who actually got the early lead on that one.
Yeah, I was wondering who that was that dove down on the inside. I guess it was Davis, so that's who got the award. We see Austin Lee, the 123 machine there on screen. You know, one thing I'd like, can we get a overall update there, Rodney? Because I got to believe, as we see Thad Duvall on the FMF PowerPoint, Grant Baylor hot on his heels. We'll see if we can get a time on this, Rodney. I don't have my phone out, so we'll just have to count. But we'll see if it seems like Caleb is making up time, or if Josh Strang is able to close up that gap on Caleb to fight over that 3rd place spot. So we got a couple of battles going on the course right now. And I'll tell you what, Rodney, I think that gap has opened up a little bit.
Well, I reset the computer a few moments ago. There he is. And it is at my calculations at just under 20 seconds now.
Okay, so maybe it has closed down a little. What was it, 27 before we were looking at?
29.
And there is Josh Strang still keeping pace with Caleb there. So those guys are on pace to possibly close that gap down a little bit on Thad and Grant. Here is our 5th place rider, Lane Michael, the 523 KR4 machine. Oh, look at that. He got his feet off the pegs, but was able to get her saved. Next, we should see, we believe our 6th place rider, when we had last seen them, was, who was that? Oh, where was Craig DeLong at in our overall? That's what I was.
Craig is 5th place.
So
overall.
5th place overall. I knew he was up there close to the top 5. And Ricky Russell was our 6th place rider in XC1 the last time we had seen. And this is where our big gap is right now. The top 5 all kind of within striking distance there. But that gap back to Ricky seems to be growing.
Wow, 33 seconds is what it was when they came through the finish line there just a few moments ago, and not far out of that right now, about the same time frame as we see Russell making his way through on board the 212 out of Washington, AM Pro Yamaha. Here comes.
That is that's Ashburn. I could not figure out who that was in the moose gear, and it's Ashburn. I've been messing him up all day so far. Apologies. You give me one weekend off, and I forget who everybody is. There was Trevor Bollinger, and who was behind Bollinger there? Looks like it would have been.
Was that Baylor maybe?
Oh, here we go. Battle on screen. XC3 out on the moto track. There's Alex Teagard in the 309, the 37 of Jesse Ansley. Don't know if this is our leader. We'll see as they check in. But this may be the battle for the lead. And it looks like Alex Teagard takes him on the inside there. These guys are they're playing pretty nice right now. We'll see if that continues.
Out here on this motocross track now at the finish line as we wrap up lap number 1 for the XC3 125 Pro-Am. It is Alex Teagarden and Jesse Ansley, the 37, running 1 and 2. Less than a second separating those two as we watch them make their way out of the finish line area. Jason Langenbeck about 8 seconds behind in the number 3 spot. Jason Raines, the 916, about 1 second off his pace, is 4th place right now. And back out here in the woods, Josh Toth making his way by. He is your leader of the XC2 class, as we see.
It was Craig DeLong. He had a 50-some second lead. I wonder.
Oh, you're right.
We missed him.
Maybe that was my missed call. I was thinking.
No, they said he was the leader, but I believe they were mistaken. It was Craig DeLong who was leading. He had.
Well, it might have got a little confusing there because there is such that big gap. Craig has really, I mean, just 52 seconds. And, you know, you wonder how you see these races sometimes and you see there's just a couple of seconds between riders, and then you see other classes where there's a minute and a half, or you wonder how sometimes things like that happen. But it's chance and circumstance, I think, a lot of times in these types of conditions.
It is, and it really is this track, these conditions, you know, so slick. It just makes, you know, mistakes are just so abundant. They're happening instead of, you know, you'll talk about riders after the race and they'll say, oh, I made a mistake on the 3rd lap, or, you know, I went down on the 2nd lap. Today it's just going to be, man, I don't know, I was on the ground more than I was upright, and I can't believe I was able to win. Like, those are the kind of stories that are told after a race like this. Not as much this afternoon as the conditions are rapidly drying up, but the woods are still slick. And this morning for the youth race at 8 and then the 10 a.m. race, the conditions were just deplorable. But they were actually, Jared Bolton on the, I don't know if you heard him on the youth starting line when he gave the track description. He said, guys, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. It's absolutely terrible out there and is so slick that you can hardly ride a dirt bike around this course, so good luck and be careful.
Taking a look at this race course from high above on our drone footage here right now. Just this racetrack just 1 week from now will be playing host to the Northeast Youth Regional for Loretta Lynn's Amateur National Championship Racing. It's the final step before the big show, and we'll be right back here next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So if you're in the area, come check out some of the best in the world as far as amateur motocross are concerned in the youth ranks. And out here at the Monster Mile, saw this yesterday. I'm going to tell you, even after the rain last night and after all the bikes have gone through this, Johnny, this doesn't look much different than it did yesterday when you guys came through on the final lap.
Well, there's the issue here, Rodney, is that's not dirt you're looking at. That's rock under there. There's underneath that coming down at least, there is nothing but rock. And then even when you make the right and you start to go up, it's got a rock base to it. So that's actually what makes it so slick, is it's this clay, but then look at all those boulders and that rock. That's a rock base the whole way down that creek with just kind of mud that's flown out from the edges as it rains sitting on top of it. That's why it looks so muddy. There's not enough water to clean it off. Otherwise, it'd be a pretty waterfall. Because that is pure rock that they're riding on there. So it's not going to get ate out. It's just slickered and snot.
Yep, and there you can see riders still trying to use those as far to the inside lines. It does get a little mushy out here, and look at this. Wow. This part, there's dirt right there.
Yeah, and this is, you know, yesterday those darn ATV guys had this polished flat and slicker than anything, and then it rained and it just got even worse. So these guys are saying, hey man, I'm gonna need a break. You guys just take that thing down. You guys got any, what do you got to drink? Oh, I got my Camelback. I'm good to go. So this is, we'll see our leaders coming, so they got to get these guys out of the way because they're going to be pinning it right up that hill, and if there's a bike in the way, they'll use it as traction.
This is the chance and circumstance that I was mentioning, and that helps make those gaps out there on the trail sometimes, is when you get a situation like this. Now, this is not necessarily a bottleneck, but circumstances like that where you can't get around a rider. Thad Duvall out here with us, and he is right through the mess, through the Monster Mile. He isn't plagued any by the riders around there.
And there we go. We got Grant Baylor as he works his way through. Still hanging close there to Thad. I got a watch started to see exactly what our gap was. What would you say that was between between Thad and Grant? Maybe 5, 6 seconds, something like that?
That's what I was thinking, yeah. My radio mind tells me 5 seconds.
There you go, 5 seconds. That's what we'll go with. Rodney's never wrong when it comes to time gaps. Here we see our third place rider. Do you see that number 1 sneaking his way down? We're at 22 seconds right now, and he's still got to make the turn and get to the top. So it looks like this gap is back up to over 30 seconds. Yep, here we are. Oh, you can see how slick it is. We are at 34 seconds.
Wow.
So it's kind of doing the slinky thing, and you notice when he drops a little bit of time, Josh Strang closes it back up. So those guys are hard on the gas, but right now they're not doing anything to put a dent in the 35-second, 34-second gap that Thad Duvall and Grant Baylor have built up in the 1 and 2 place positions at the moment.
You know, kind of interesting in years past, talking with Caleb Russell. I'm not sure how he feels about the family farm nowadays, but I've talked to him in years past about racing GNCC here, and he said this is not necessarily one of his more favorite tracks on days like this, obviously. You know, but you know, he does find this one of the more challenging tracks as well, and that's kind of the neat thing that you got to throw. You know, we run mountains, we run rocks and boulders and sands and all kinds of things, but it's hard to believe the rolling hills of southeastern Ohio sometimes can afford riders with the most challenging conditions, and it doesn't take much.
What we've got on screen is a battle over our 5th place position. Ricky Russell making the pass on Lane Michael. We got to see it there right in the Monster Mile, live in front of you. You saw the pass for the 5th place position. Now here we see our 7th place rider, the 739 JCR Honda of Trevor Bollinger. He's made up a little bit of a gap there. So those guys were not nearly that close together when we last saw them. So those guys have bunched up, and we've got a battle over that 5th place spot, Rodney.
Alan Russell making that pass. Jordan Ashburn is rolling up in the 7th spot. Andrew DeLong, we should be seeing him here shortly in the 8th place position. Maybe Stu Baylor. We'll see what's going on. Baylor was only 2 seconds behind DeLong, so we'll see whether or not he tried to make that pass and is trying to make up some ground out there. Jesse Grom in 10th of the XC1 Pro Class. Corey Buttrick running 11th, with Trevor Bollinger now dropped back to 12th in class.
Yeah, see, that was Trevor Bollinger that came by in the 7th place spot.
Yeah,
so something's mixed up there.
With his scoring, yeah.
Yeah, don't know if there was a scoring issue, but Bollinger did just come by. He is in that 7th place spot. Unless we missed him, I did not yet see I don't believe up, and now we lose it. Okay. I don't think we saw Ashburn come through, but we may have missed him in there. But it was in 7th place. It definitely was Trevor Bollinger. And those guys are fighting their way out again over those top 5 spots. A little bit of a gap there back from Josh Strang in 4th back to the 5th place spot, who we did see the pass made, and that was Lane Michael had it. Ricky Russell wanted it, took it away from him.
Just saw Jonathan Garrar and Harrison Helmick checking in there just a moment ago. The 969 XC2 250 Pro rider, and Harrison Helmick, the 274 XC2 250 Pro class. As far as where they are in the standings right now, a little bit of work cut out for them. They're running back in 19th place and 18th place. Nick Davis has checked in 20th place according to timing and scoring. It seems rather odd, but wow. These conditions and days like today can certainly afford what I say a lot of surprises, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Absolutely. There's always excitement as we're watching here at the 14-mile. We got an amateur battle here on screen, Rodney. Don't know who these guys are, but look, it looks like we got some jersey sleeves swinging. We got goggles swinging. They're doing what they got to do to get through.
Now this mulch pile actually seems to have held pretty good face after yesterday's ATV and UTV racing. It was pretty hammered. I know the guys did a little bit of work to it, but didn't do a whole lot, and it's holding up nice. So another challenging part of the racetrack there. But again, like we said, if you're just joining us, a little deceiving here. If you're watching, you're seeing some dust here at the John Penton GNCC, but in the woods and the lower lying areas, it's not nearly as pleasant to ride for some of these riders if you talk to the 10 o'clock and 8 o'clock racers from this morning. But at the same time, it's turning around. And I talked to guys from this morning and said first lap was deplorable. Second lap was starting to get perfect, you know. The biggest problem was there were so many riders on the track and they were going so many different places that it was hard to keep a straight line because riders were running into you and you were trying to dodge them, and just got a little gnarly out there for that 10 o'clock race. I don't think that's going to be so much the case for this afternoon race.
Yeah, I think as the race wears on, we might see some bottlenecks. We might see, you know, we did see in that section as Thad was coming to it, there was 2 or 3 riders down, and they just got one of them out of the way barely in time that Thad was able to get through there without any issues. So definitely be some bottlenecks, but I don't think anything to the degree of what we saw this morning in the 10 a.m. race. You know, obviously we saw riders laps ahead of everyone else in their class if they were able to make it through bottlenecks. And then also this morning in the youth race at 8 a.m., those conditions and those bottlenecks were some of the worst I've ever seen in history.
Yeah, I talked to a few people after that one as well. There was a lot of, my gosh. So it was tough. I mean, and you know what's really weird is we didn't get a lot of rain last night. That's the funny and odd thing about it. I mean, it almost seems had we gotten more rain, things wouldn't have been as bad maybe.
Well, I think what happens is, again, back to those darn quad guys, they got everything all polished off, and then we got that rain last night. And what this clay does is it kind of puffs up the top inch or so, maybe less than an inch, and it makes it just this greasy, slimy, what the heck is going on kind of a terrain. And it's literally like trying to ride your dirt bike on ice. But, you know, they don't make ice on off cambers and uphills, you know, at least not in your car. You don't really experience it. And that's what these guys are trying to ride. So we see once that rut gets worn into these sections, these guys are kind of carrying more speed and able to do, you know, a little bit better with getting their way through. It's just the hill climbs that are challenging. But before that rut gets there, it's really tough on this polished hard pack to get any kind of grip and keep yourself even upright, let alone try and go forward and stay upright. See another one of our amateur riders working their way through the mulch pile, and that section every year, Rodney, that, you know, when we start off, it is smooth. They doze it flat, and throughout the course of the weekend, it gets these 2 big lines cut into it, all these ruts and all these whoops, just so whooped out, all these holes. It's almost like riding a Southwick motocross track through there.
You know, it's really interesting. I was checking out YouTube looking for some information concerning the John Penton GNCC. And I found a video from back around 2010, 2012 when the mulch pile was fresh. And it's amazing the difference in that mulch pile today as opposed to what it was 10 years or so ago.
Yeah.
Hey, we got Mikey Wayne standing by in the pit. Sounds like we got an update coming in. Mikey, what's going on?
First of all, it's hot. Probably not quite as hot as the booth you guys are in. But, man, it's been chaos up here. Big thing guys are talking about, obviously, hydration, staying cool in this 3-hour, 15-mile lap race. But we've already got a banner down, as you guys can see. They knocked down our VP Racing Fuels banner. Some of the pit crews up here, hot on the spot. Got the banner fixed. We're getting her fixed up right now officially. but it's been chaos through the pits so far, guys.
All righty, thanks a lot. Chaos probably is a reigning word for today, to be honest with you. And honestly, the chaos that we're seeing seems kind of calm, cool, and collected by comparison to what's going on across the road and out in those woods right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's kind of the unassuming conditions that we see out here in the open, although it is, you know, Rodney, I must say, obviously, I don't ride a dirt bike, so I can't put things in complete perspective. But watching, I noticed as we were watching the XC3 battle come through, those guys are, you know, really seeming to be tiptoeing their way around. And even where it is dry, it is just so slick out there at the moment.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I'll tell you one place right now that they're trying to still learn the lines and may not be so slick as far as being hard packs, that John Penton section. Just got an update that Caleb Russell, third place, is 45 seconds behind the leader, Thad Duvall, right now. So they're gauging him on Thad. Obviously, in between that and right behind Thad is still, I believe, Grant Baylor, the 314.
Yeah, so we see that gap between the top three. We don't know exactly what the gap is from first to second. Thad Duvall setting a fast pace here early, putting the hammer down, trying to open up a gap, which he was, if you recall, able to do last year. And then those guys kind of played the seesaw game until just a little bit before the end of the race there. They were kind of nose to tail battling. And there was actually, I think, Caleb had a crash, and there were some bike issues and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. So crazy race here last year, and it's shaping up to be much the same this year with Thad Duvall leading the way. Grant Baylor in second. We don't know the exact gap, but they're saying still very close to Thad Duvall, who is leading, and then Caleb Russell now 45 seconds back in that third place spot. We've seen him as close as 20, and the gap the last couple times on camera just seems to be stretching. It was 20, then 34, and now 45. So those boys up front really got the hammer down.
Well, I'll tell you, there's certainly some history here for Thad Duvall, not only last year, but years before. And one thing, this place holds a lot of special near and dear memories to him. And we had a chance to talk with him about some of the things going on here in recent years.
Yeah, it's been crazy for sure, and you know, thankful enough that you know I'm in probably the best shape I ever have been in, and I feel like it's really paying off for sure. And you know, you see preseason stuff about who's training and who's not, and you kind of really don't have an idea. So when we come into the year, it's kind of like a fresh start, and you know, now this will be the 7th round of the year, so it's crazy to see how much the intensity has gone up each race. And you know, there's been races I feel like the intensity's been higher than others, but it's just kind of the way the track feels out and how the track is, and you know how you know, lappers and everything else. And you know, I felt like I really struggled the last race. I don't know, I didn't have it, just kind of rode around and couldn't push the way I wanted to. But you know, we did some homework, and you know, luckily enough, the team came out and we tested this week in my house. So it's crazy because we actually had some similar conditions to this, and super slick and super kind of muddy one day. So it's a relief to know that I'm 110% prepared for today for sure.
Well, being prepared from here, from experience, I mean, that's one thing that you can say. And, you know, we talked about a lot of things. And that's one thing that he did talk about, was knowing this terrain, and that he's raced here. He said, I'm 28 years old, and he said, I've probably raced here 25 of the 28 years that I've been alive. And he started here on a PW back in motocross days, believe it or not, and obviously racing local hare scrambles in District 11. So even though Thad is a West Virginia native, this is really his home track.
Yeah, definitely his closest track, I would say, to his house. You know, close for him. He's you know, Williamstown is basically Marietta, and Marietta's just up the road a piece from here. So again, to get any closer, I think about the only two that you could throw in the hat would be D.R. Atwood,
yeah, and Levi Cohen.
Well, Levi Cohen, yeah, on the ATV side, but again, Corey Buttrick, very close to home. Don't see his name up. He is in 19th place overall. Don't know exactly what place that puts him in the XC1 Pro class. We can check here, but probably around maybe 11th or 12th.
I think it's 11th, if memory serves me correct.
So not quite the start he was looking for today. Yep, back in that 11th place spot. And again, they're showing him ahead of Trevor Bollinger. We know that is not correct as of what we're seeing. It looks like if you look there, they show Bollinger 7 minutes back, and I think they must have missed him and then had to plug him in terms of his transponder.
That would make sense. So it'll fix itself whenever they come around next time around. So that'll be the interesting thing about that. So we'll get a better idea, at least from a computer standpoint, of how things are shaping up. But right now, looking at this, you know, we oftentimes like to look and see about our top amateurs and so forth. And, you know, we see XC1 and XC2 throughout our entire top 20. I don't even see an XC3 rider in our top 20. I actually see in 22nd place Levi Keller, the 34 from Bainbridge, Ohio, an Open A rider, 22nd overall, which would be our top amateur. And he's actually leading, I think, unless I'm overlooking something here, all of our XC3 riders as well.
Yeah, he appears to be. And, you know, you talk about local boys that, you know, I'm not very familiar with the area, but I believe Bainbridge is quite close to here.
And, of course, with that, you know, Levi Keller being out of Bainbridge, Ohio, he runs a lot of the Sorks races up around here, I believe, and stuff.
Yeah, he's a local boy, runs at Wexer Series and OMA, I think it's called. There's quite or OXCR.
Yep.
So he's you know, runs a lot of that stuff, and he's also a great mud rider. We've seen him on our amateur overall podium a number of times. We have seen him on there in the dry, but when it gets muddy and the conditions get gnarly, he's always right up in there. And again, today leading our amateur overall out of that Open A class. You got to look all the way back to 26th overall to find Alex Teagard, the leader of the XC3 class, followed closely by Jesse Ainsley in 27th.
Well, there you go, folks. And here at this Weisco John Penton GNCC, it is certainly living up to its namesake, I believe, you know, as a tough race for a tough gentleman, there's no doubt. And we had a chance to talk with John Penton. And, you know, that's what's one of the great things about my job. I get a chance to talk with a lot of these guys. And I've talked to John nearly every year that he's been coming here since like 2002. And it's always a treat and always an honor and a pleasure. And I had a chance to do it again before today's race.
Yes, I know that. I can't imagine what's taking place right now, and what I did coming up here 60 years ago. Just about that, the way they're built and so forth. And back in those years, we were using a bunch of road machines and converting them and so forth. And now they're developed into the most highly technical machine that's being built for off the road. We carried that through, and because they were race machines that we were building, we used them ready for race. You didn't have to take them home and change the exhaust pipes or take the engine apart and rebuild it. The whole thing was ready to race, and the most competitive machines out there. Yeah, most of the World War veterans of my day, they'd have to be a veteran, they'd have to be 70 or 90 years old or older.
And you're getting ready to turn, what, 93 years old?
Just about. In a month, I'll be 93.
That's amazing. Well, John, is there anything else you'd like to pass along to the fans here at the Weisco John Penton GNCC?
Just keep on riding and stick with your family.
Well, I'll tell you what, looking at the stuff here today, the track and course conditions, they certainly live up to that man's namesake. There's no doubt about it. And the amazing thing is that, you know, the machines that he helped design helped also lay the groundwork for this series. And what laid the groundwork for this series is this right here. These types of races, the Blackwater 100, all began like 1977, Johnny Gallagher, and you can see the difference in the machines from that time to now, obviously even more from the time when John Penton first started building these things. But wow, look what it built, look what it came into, the Blackwater 100, and then giving birth to this, the GNCC.
Absolutely, the Blackwater 100, you know, a crazy event. You can see just this was the Highway 93 river crossing, made it down to this a number of times throughout the years, and it wasn't like this was an option line. This was it. If you wanted to go up this hill, this is where you had to go. These were the peat bogs. You see guys just launching their bikes across, you know, and if you went like this guy and went down in, you didn't always have such great success, but you just had to pin it, hold on, and almost made it. So close. Here we see riders coming through. Even the finish line was treacherous. This was literally the finish line, and guys were crashing coming in. You know, just so crazy how tough these races were and just how wild the conditions were.
Do you recognize any of those ATV riders by any chance?
Absolutely. That was, I believe that was Randy Smallwood on screen. 403, that may be James Wise right there, who his daughter Emily still races. So a lot of these people were lifers. Don't know who that is there on that Husky, but some of these guys that are pinning, that could very possibly be one of the low jack boys there. We see some three-wheeler riders here. This was back in the days when I was going as a young boy to this race. Remember that guy without the shirt on? He was a good buddy of mine. But the conditions were just absolutely crazy. And this is, if you wanted to see him pulling his helmet off so he doesn't drown, you just launch into the creek and shut her down. Things were... This was back in the heyday thing. We're still getting things started. So when the boys these days talk about how tough the conditions are, we just show them these videos and say, "You sure?" Because this seems like it might have been a little bit tougher.
I have to tend to agree. There's no doubt about that. And, this right here, it's kind of interesting for us to watch. But, the thing we got to realize is 25-mile loops. It was a 100-mile race. And though not every mile was this treacherous and this difficult, probably what made that race the race that it was the sections that were tough were exactly that, the toughest that you were going to find. And here's another thing that made it unique. You got to race right down the streets of Davis, West Virginia.
That's right, and I think we may have just seen, I know who that guy right there is. That was Scott Summers that we just saw, and I think we might have seen Eddie Lojack prior to that, each of those guys having multiple GNCC championships. That guy right there had a few GNCC championships of his own, and back then it was T-shirt and jeans, kind of run what you brung kind of a thing. And there is Timmy Coombs. It looks like that was his win at the Blackwater 100.
1988 Blackwater 100. Here's his interview from back then.
Plaque and a special racing jacket from Castrol. The real rewards, though, for any Blackwater competitor are the memories.
Couldn't believe it. Man. It was great. Couldn't believe it. Tried to get as far ahead as I could so I could loaf, but I got a flat tire at the beginning of the last lap, and I just busted my butt.
I've heard the story of that win time and time again. And you know what was really neat? His son, whom looks an awfully lot like him, believe it or not, from that old picture there of Timmy Coombs, was here this morning. Now, Cade decided not to ride. He's not as an avid mud follower as maybe what Dad might have been, and even his mom right now. But Cade's here, and the tradition continues as far as the Coombs family is concerned.
And I believe both Cade's mom and her sister both raced this morning in the 10 a.m. Amateur race. Saw him on the starting line. Becca stopped and was talking to him there, and I think it might have been the first time that both of the sisters have raced in quite some time.
Well, right now we are over an hour into this race, an hour and 10.5 minutes. Thad Duvall leading Grant Baylor at last, Jack, just over 5 seconds. Caleb Russell was some 45 seconds back of the battle for the lead. Josh Strang was in fourth. Craig DeLong rounded out your top five. GNCC will continue here in just a moment. Who's going to get the win today? It's still a barn burner, my friends.
I'm a sore loser.
I'm a sore loser. Losing is not an option for me.
Be the best.
The best? The best.
You have to have the best equipment under the hood.
That's why I
only use
Cometic products in my engines.
Cometic gasket.
Cometic gasket.
Cometic gasket.
Cometic gasket, a superior quality gasket
for those of us who demand the highest level of performance.
We handle your races, your jumps, and your trails. Isn't it time you give your daily driver the same love? AMSOIL's Signature Series Synthetic Motor Oil delivers 75% more engine protection against horsepower loss and wear than required by a leading industry standard. AMSOIL also offers a full family of ATV, UTV lubricants, giving you above and beyond fortification for your weekday and weekend vehicles. AMSOIL, devoted to protection.
What is your passion? Hitting the perfect line, finding the perfect trail, routing the perfect adventure, or just living and breathing the moto life? Do you feel pride for a job well done after tackling a late night in the shop? Do you enjoy time spent with friends and family in the great outdoors? Spanning over 3 decades, one name has taken the lead for supplying the best powersport parts, accessories, and apparel to fuel your passion. One name that knows it goes beyond getting you the best prices, quickest shipping, or largest selection. One name that builds and innovates for our industry. One name that teaches, helps, and supports our fellow riders, racers, and organizations.
Lucas Oil Pro Motocross returns to the legendary High Point Raceway in Mount Morris, Pennsylvania for the 42nd annual Red Bull High Point National on Saturday, June 16, located just 5 miles north of Morgantown off I-79 exit 1. Be trackside when the dirt flies. Go to highpointmx.com. Feel the roar of speed-only motocross ring. The races start at 1 p.m. Saturday, June 16 at High Point Raceway. Visit highpointmx.com and we'll see you at the races June 16th.
And welcome back to GNCC Live, right here from Sunday Creek Raceway in Millfield, Ohio for the Wiseco John Penton GNCC. It's round 7 of the AMSOIL GNCC Series and AMA National Championship. I'm Rodney Tomlin along with Johnny Gallagher and Mikey Waynes here as we give you the call today a little over an hour into this race. There's Thad Duvall making his way into the mulch pile as we get our first chance to look at him in quite some time, about 15 minutes or so since we last laid eyes on these racers and they went into that long section. Some of them maybe even call it the long dreaded John Penton section that has certainly separated some men from some boys out here in this afternoon race. And there is the gap we're starting to see open up quite a bit as Grant Baylor still running back in the number 2 spot, but not nearly as close to Thad Duvall as what he was earlier in the race and since the last time we saw him even. So we're probably looking at a gap that is more than double, maybe tripled over where he was just a few miles ago. And now we wait for the word on what's going on with Caleb Russell. We had the word that it was a 45-second gap from him to Thad Duvall, and that's from first to third place there as they made their way into the John Penton section there a few moments ago. And as we make our way out, we're still probably 45 to maybe close to a minute before Caleb Russell finally shows his face here into the big open field section heading toward the mulch pile. So we'll get a more calculated look at that. And is that even Caleb? No, that's not even Caleb Russell there. That is a different rider there with us. So that might be Josh Strang, and I may have missed Caleb, or maybe there is Caleb back there. So Josh Strang has moved up to the number 3 spot of what we're seeing on track right now, and that is Caleb Russell. And I'm pretty sure I saw 114 on that machine with the mud and everything. I could have been a little bit deceived there, but nonetheless, here comes Caleb Russell, the number 1 machine. We'll get the official breakdown on these guys coming through in just a few moments. But wow, what a crazy, well, chaos, I guess you could say, ensuing out here today, making things wild and crazy. And if that wasn't Josh Strang up in the number 3 spot, we got a lapped rider that looked an awful lot like him right there. And there is the 989 of Thad Duvall. He's in the pits. They're spraying out the radiators right now, trying to get some of that thick Ohio clay out of that. Thad Duvall's got him some water, got him some gas, sprayed off, and he is back and rolling as we are now joined in studio by Robbie Jinks, former GNCC great himself and one of Ohio's greats himself. Robbie, welcome to GNCC Live. Welcome back to the GNCC Nation, my friend.
Hey, thanks.
And watching and waiting to see what's going on here. We've seen Thad Duvall going through. So, Robbie, what's going on, man? You've been out here at the races. You've been watching. There's Grant Baylor in the pits now making his way in. We're going to get a chance to see about Caleb Russell. But what brings you back to GNCC?
Yeah, it's close to home. You know, we only live 20 minutes from here.
What's going on here? We're actually having to push start. I'm sorry, having to push start Grant Baylor's bike. And Grant, man, I tell you, looking so strong, and that could change the face of this race. He does have a little bit of a gap here, but what is going on? Why will this machine not fire? Got another person coming out to try, and there it is. It finally fires up. Man, I can only imagine that had to be a moment there where Grant Baylor was thinking, what in the world do I have to do to put things together and keep them together? Thad Duvall through the finish line now as he makes his way in. That is 2 laps down. Lap number 2 at 38:58, just under the 39-minute mark. Not much different than lap number 1, honestly, and there's not much difference really in the length of the course as we started kind of close to the finish line, and that would have been the first part of that race. So here we go, and this is Grant Baylor still in the number 2 spot as he is making his way toward the finish line. What was a 2.6-second gap a lap ago has now increased to, I'm going to say, probably closer to 30 seconds at this point.
Hey, Rodney, if I could jump in real quick. As they were pushing Grant Baylor, right when they got him going, Josh Strang was down here in the pits, wrapping his pit up. So Josh Strang gaining some major time there with a very quick pit stop, and now probably right on the heels of Grant Baylor.
And there's Caleb Russell making his way out of the pits. So we did see what we thought. Ooh, was that Russell going through the banner right there? Couldn't get stopped for whatever reason and gets behind another lap driver. He had to come back. Now, see that white pole corner marker? We talk about this in the riders' meeting. You got to go around the white pole corner marker. Well, I'll tell you what, Caleb Russell, he knew the rules, and he knew that he had gone too far, too fast, and he had to turn around and go back, go around that pole. So, wow, mistakes. They are mounting up, Robbie Jinks, and I'm sure you understand.
That's not helping him at all, especially with the longer laps and everything. But, you know, Caleb's been at this a long time, and he's pretty wily, so I'm sure he'll start making some time back up.
Oh, I'm sure, and we're only approaching the halfway point at this particular time, so we know that still plenty of time for things to happen, and Caleb is certainly capable of making that happen for sure. And with that, wow, I mean, I'm kind of awestruck and surprised, but at the same time, I'm not. Coming into the halfway point, I had a feeling yesterday, and I had the same feeling today. We could see some mix-ups today, some points gained, some points lost, and this might be the scenario that I was feeling coming on.
Yeah, you know, I've been watching through the internet and everything, and Thad's really been pushing all year. Him and Caleb both, they seem a little bit ahead of everybody else, so, you know, Thad's having a good day. This is a home turf for him. So he's used to the conditions, and he's probably enjoying it maybe a little bit even.
I would imagine that he is probably in full enjoyment mode right now. I'm sure there's a little monster in the back of his head saying, where's Caleb, where's Caleb? But I'm sure he's also getting pit boards that's saying, Caleb's over a minute behind you now. Grant Baylor was 41 seconds behind Thad Duvall. 25 seconds behind him was Josh Strang. A minute and 1 second behind Josh Strang in 4th place is Caleb Russell. How often do you see something like that? Now, last time around, Craig DeLong checked in the 5th place. If he is not having any problems today, we could literally see him inch his way into a possible podium position if he's having some good rides, lap times today.
Yeah, the XC2 guys, you know, they kind of have the advantage of picking their way through and following these guys and literally gaining time on them the whole time they're learning.
Well, as the riders continue to check in, we got Stu Baylor up to 5th place now. Lane Michael is 6th. And Baylor about 43 seconds behind Caleb Russell. He's made up some major ground and positions out there. That's going to be valuable in his championship points race. But at the same time, Stu Baylor wants more. Lane Michael is 6th. You know, he's wanting more. Ricky Russell, the rough and rowdy one, he's probably not real satisfied with the way things are turning out right now either. But he's back now, 7th place in class, 8th place overall. As Craig DeLong has checked in, he is still 5th place overall. If we look at elapsed time here in the race, looks like there might still be a little bit of a cushion there, about 40 seconds, actually about 30 seconds that Caleb Russell has over Craig DeLong in that cushions. But he can't afford many more mistakes as this race wears on if Craig DeLong is going to stay consistent. That drops Stu Baylor back to 6th overall, Lane Michael in 7th, Ricky Russell is 8th. Jordan Ashburn has checked in the number 9 spot. Josh Toth checking in 10th place a lap ago overall, leading the XC2 class. Actually 2nd in the XC2 class, and he checks in 9th place, 2nd in the XC2 class this time around. Well, Robbie Jinks, as I said, a former GNCC great and still obviously an avid fan, not far from home. You're what, 15, 20, 30 minutes?
About 20 minutes, yep.
So this right here was always kind of your backyard then, huh?
Yeah, you know, some days that was good and other days that was unfortunate. You know, the Penton always has the extreme of the weathers. Usually we either hot, dry, and dusty, or it's muddy. And today I think we got a little bit of both, as the woods look like they're still pretty wet, but out here it's out on the moto track it's pretty hard and dry.
Well, you know, we always wonder where they are now, and where is Robbie Jenks now? What's going on in your life, man?
Still close to home. You know, I never went very far, which is good. I like it there, and we got good riding, and still just close.
All right, let's go ahead and check in with Mikey Waynes real quick. We got some updates on what's going on up there in the Teely Energy pits.
Thanks, guys. Down here with Kevin in the Teely Energy pits. We saw some footage of you guys. Baylor after the pit stop.
Yeah, we flushed out his radiator, so it was running cooler, and just bogged the bike down. He shut it off, and it wouldn't fire back up, so we had to bump start it.
So good from here.
Yeah, he's good.
Okay, there we go. We got the word on the dirt, as it were, down here at Teely Energy.
Well, that's good to know that it's nothing too troubling, that's for sure. And Grant Baylor just went through the FMF PowerPoint while we were speaking there. And I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
We
got a lot going on.
We do have a lot going on, and it sounds like you got a lot going on too. So, do you find yourself wanting to come back out here at the track? We're going to see you back out here anytime soon in any capacities?
Probably. I don't know. I mean, you hate to say never. I do still enjoy it, and I follow it all the time and try to keep up with as much as I can. I still do some racing in our local series, so I still do some riding, you know, not near what I used to do or anything like that, but still fun. I still enjoy doing it, so that's why I go. Got 2 little kids, and they like to go, so that's kind of my main focus right now.
What do you think about GNCC by comparison? What have you been out of it, 5, 6 years now?
10.
Nuh-uh.
10. 2007 was my last year.
Wow.
Yeah, so 10 years.
A lot of changes since.
Big changes. These guys now, it's you know, 1st to 20th is super professional, and people got trainers, and we didn't really have that back when I was doing it. You kind of, if you did it on your own, you were in pretty good shape. So
yeah, it's amazing how it's progressed, and it's certainly progressed in good directions. There's no doubt about it. Sounds like things are going well for you too, Robbie. Stick around here and help us call this for a few minutes if you want. Johnny be back to help us call too as well. But just glad to have you back and welcome you back to the folds of GNCC Racing Nation. Austin Lee on the 123 machine. You can pick him out. You probably remember him as a kid. Maybe he was still racing, had the mohawk on his helmet. Well, I tell you what, one thing that he has seen this year is a lot of consistency. We've seen him either on the podium or near the podium, and that's one thing that I had a chance to catch up and talk with him about before the race today.
Yeah,
yeah, it's been good. We've had just a couple of rounds that we had some bad luck that was out of anybody's control, but other than that, we've been right around 4th, 3rd, 4th, and beating on that podium. So I keep last weekend I missed the podium by like a couple of seconds, so really looking forward to getting it back up on the podium for sure.
And this kid, man, I tell you, it's not far. He's not far from a win, and I think once he gets a win, Robbie, you know as well as anyone, once you get that first win under your belt, it's easier to start making them happen after that.
Yeah, you get confidence, and that's what this is all about, being comfortable and knowing you can do it.
Well, as we take a look at the XC2 250 Pro Class standings, looks like after 2 laps, Duvall and Toth, 37 seconds separating those guys. Ben Kelly, 20 seconds in 3rd. Mike Witkowski is another 2 minutes and 2 seconds back and 4th. Evan Smith, 347 in the 5th place position. He's 18 seconds back. Austin Lee all the way back in 6th place. So, you know, the consistency that we were talking about may not be looking so bright right now, but we're only an hour and 27 minutes into this race, and that's just barely at the halfway point. And we know a lot of things can happen. It's already seen it in this first hour and a half and the second hour and a half, Robbie. You know what it's like, especially hour 2 to 3.
Yeah, it's not going to get any easier. You know, everybody's going to get, it's really hot out, so everybody's going to get tired, and, you know, maybe some dehydration or things like that. So they just got to keep pushing forward and hope somebody else makes a mistake and they can capitalize on it.
Well, I'll tell you one thing they're not getting to do right now out there on the racetrack is eat some of this wonderful ice cream. It's hot, and the ice cream's going down good. We got some up the FFA Cafe, if you will. Federal Hawking FFA Cafe is open, and they got ice cream. They got hot food as well, cold drinks. Step on up and find out more about what you can get to make your day a little more pleasurable here at the Whitesco John Penton GNCC. As we roll through this one, as we said, we're now pushing on the hour and 28-minute mark. As we watch these riders check in, let's give you a breakdown again so you're aware and up to speed on what's going on. Duval and Baylor, 41.5 seconds separating at first and second. Josh Strang has gotten around Caleb Russell. He is now third place position, 25 seconds off the pace of second place. Caleb Russell, 1 minute and 1 second. I actually called it 1 minute and 2 seconds in that fourth place position. And wow, again, you got to ask yourself, what in the world is going on there? As you see Craig DeLong in the 5th place position, Stu Baylor in 6th, Lane Michael in 7th, Ricky Russell 8th, Josh Toth in 9th, and Jordan Ashburn in 10th. Robbie, I mean, I'm sure you've seen these types of things whenever you're racing. Do the elements really, the conditions change the way things are going out there?
Oh, for sure. You know, today, especially here, the way it's wet and dry, you're learning to ride in the woods where it's tacky, and then you come out on the hard pack and it's slick. So you're having to use different types of techniques for throttle control and just basically your corner speed. So they're learning all day. You know, you're changing every lap, and with the other riders trying to get around them, and they're getting tired, so you're passing a lot of people, I'm sure.
And you mentioned changes, and I'm sure it changes every lap. I mean, and sometimes it can be pretty drastic, I imagine, right?
Yeah, I'm sure you come around in a little mud hole like what we're seeing there now, and then the next lap there's maybe 10 people stuck there.
Yeah.
And you just got to wait your turn and find a good line.
Thad Duval through the Monster Mile, I believe, as he makes his way down the creek bed there. And, you know, he is really on reels out here today. Seems to have things dialed in. And this is kind of a redemption ride for him. If you remember, a year ago, Thad Duval actually got the win, and I'll break it down for you. We were in the John Penton section, I think, and all of a sudden we lost sight of Caleb Russell, and then we heard that he was having electrical problems. Well, what happened was Thad got out front, and Grant Baylor actually got past Caleb Russell, and in the second, Caleb was able to get his machine back rolling, and as they came across the finish line, Thad took the checkers, Grant took second, and Caleb took third. And at that point, Thad Duval actually went into the points lead just for a brief few moments, but there was a penalty imposed for a course infraction that Thad wasn't aware of. He was pointed a bad line by a spectator, and, you know, we even talked about that a little while ago. But, you know, no animosities, no hard feelings, but it dropped him back to like third place. Caleb got second, and all of a sudden his points lead wasn't there, but the points were still tight heading into the next races. And there it is, nearly a minute later now is Grant Baylor back in the second place position. Grant Baylor ended up with the win here last year by default. That dropped, I believe, Thad back to a third place position, if I'm not mistaken, after losing 2 spots. But that's how it all broke down there last year. And, you know, the amazing thing is the friendship bond that has come between those two riders since that heated battle last year. It seemed to be that you thought there was a lot of animosities, and there may have been, but since that time in the ISD 60s, they buried the hatchet out there, and they have turned this championship into a fun championship for both of each other.
Yeah, you know, them two have been racing each other for a long time, probably since they were on mini bikes. So they know each other, and they know what each other's going to do, so it should be all good.
I believe that is the case. Now, waiting right now, we're going to wait, see where Josh Strang is. We're going to check on Caleb Russell, quite possibly, and even Stu Baylor, who was, Strang is caught back up to Grant Baylor. That was a 25-second gap at one point, I think, the way they're telling me. There's Caleb Russell right there. That's your fourth place ride. 1 minute and 2 seconds back, and I think that's still around the same amount of time there. Caleb really doesn't seem to be pushing things. It's almost as if he's accepted the consequences today and is just trying to ride for the points.
Yeah, he's smart enough. He knows that, you know, championship is the big picture.
And that's how champions think out there on the race course. That's Stu Baylor, I believe, and wow, that's up to 5th place physically. He was 43 seconds behind Caleb Russell when they came through the finish line. That almost, well, that might have been around that 43-second time. He hasn't lost any more time, that's for sure. And maybe even gained a little bit as we watch riders traversing this Monster Mile section of the race course.
It definitely looks a lot different there than it does out here.
It does. The moto track and there, and of course they're pulling up a little bit of water into that, but you know, from what I've been told, there's some sections out there that are like this. But like you said, I mean, there's some sun getting through there. It is tacking up in areas, and you have to wonder and think that the lap times are going to get a little faster. A 38.58 that time around on lap 2 for your leader. So we'll mark that down and see what happens as the race progresses. Will it get any faster? And here's another thing. We have a longer lap than traditional. These are this is a near 15-mile lap, and amazingly, still only taking about less than 40 minutes to get around, so that's saying a whole lot. But, you know, that's a tribute, I think, to the man John Penton himself by putting in these sections out there, making the track a little bit longer, more rugged, as John Penton is. And, Robbie, I know you were a KTM rider for a long time, weren't you?
Yeah, for the last 3 years I rode KTM. You know, the longer laps really help, too.
There's Josh Toth making his way through now from the XC2 250 Pro class. Toth 9th place overall, 2nd place in the XC2 Pro-Am class. Or no, he's 1st in the Pro-Am class, and it's not Pro-Am, it's XC250 Pro now. The Pro-Am is your XC3, and old habits die hard, man.
It's been a long time.
Hey, I recognize the name out there, Ryder Lafferty. You might remember racing against his uncle, huh?
Yeah, Mike's nephew.
So, wonder if we'll ever get to see Mike out here anytime soon. That would be pretty neat, I think. I tell you what, Robbie, I'm going to go through some of these classes. Guys, when are we expecting to see those leaders through again? Because there's a couple classes at this halfway point. Is a great time to catch up with what's going on out there. I think we should have enough time. So we're going to start out here with our Open A class. And to give you a rundown of what's taken place, and this is after 2 laps of racing for the front 5 or so in this class. 39 minutes into the race, or 39 minutes is when our leaders are due in, I should say, as they are turning 43-minute lap times. Those 38-minute lap times was Thad Duvall. Everybody else is 39 and 40-plus minutes out here during this race. But Open A class being led by Levi Keller out of Bainbridge, Ohio. We talked about him a few moments ago, and he is certainly a local flavor here. He can certainly make some big things happen in some of the local series and get to see him out of the national scene as well. So good to see him doing well here in his home state, as always. The 419, Tyler Soriano out of Yerkesville, Ohio in 2nd, a 1:50 gap. I want you to listen to some of these gaps. Open A, 3:58 in 3rd place. Tucker Smith from Kansas City, Kansas, a 1:33. Ben Parsons in 4th place, 55 seconds back. And then Matt Curvin, a 1:03 seconds. Actually, it's Eric Guys now in the number 5 spot, a 1:03 seconds. And he is out of Sammamish, Washington. So he comes all the way over from the West Coast following Jason Rain's lead, it looks like. But Eric Guys right now, 5th place in the Open A bike class, and that's your top 5 in with 2 laps. As we check in with the 250A class next, JoJo Bowden out of Lockport, New York, a 15-second lead after that first lap over Simon Johnson. They're due in anytime. I'm going to give them a couple more minutes before we can actually say that they're due in. But JoJo Bowden, Simon Johnson, the 8011 out of Bennington, Vermont. He's running in the number 2 spot. We got Owen Guys out of Howington, Connecticut, 18 seconds back to 3:22 in 3rd. Brewer Cawley out of Lexington, South Carolina in 4th, and Dakota DeVore out of Yerkesville, Ohio in the number 5 spot. Something I think rather interesting, you've got Bowden, Johnson, and guys who are actually kind of those northeastern riders. You got Bowden, who's a New York rider. You got Bennington, you got Johnson, who's from Vermont and from Connecticut. Owen Guys there, and you know, it's kind of neat that you see these guys in these types of conditions, because whenever I think of Northeast racing, I kind of think of more loamy type soil than the types of clay that these guys seem to be actually prevailing out on here today.
Yeah, I'm sure I know they don't ride in much clay there. It's loam and rock. They got a lot of rocks up there.
Well, there went the 121 of Corey Bucktrick there a few moments ago, as we'll check in with that 200A class and then do that. And of course, we got the 415 Landon Lynn from Fellsmere, Florida. That's kind of odd that you got a Floridian leading a mud race like this. Ryder LeBlanc, who was leading after the first lap, 2nd at least right now. Joe Marsh out of Indianola, Pennsylvania, 39 and 3rd. Travis Renaud out of Stratford, Missouri is 4th aboard the 624 199. Zachary Davidson out of Iron Station, North Carolina, rounds out the top 5. Real quick, checking when we are due back with our leaders and what's going on there with Thad Duvall in the top 20 overall right now. Duvall, still another 20 minutes, 19 minutes before we can expect to see those guys back around for lap number 3 complete. Rather long, grueling laps that these riders are racing out here today, but it's still Thad Duvall, Grant Baylor, Josh Strang, 1, 2, and 3, Caleb Russell in 4th, and Craig DeLong rounding out the 5th place position. Again, Craig leading the XC2 250 Pro class and 5th place overall after time adjustments. And, you know, I made mention a little bit ago, and I believe that now might be a good time to talk a little bit about this, but Robbie, you know what it's like, man, being a racer and being highly competitive with those guys. I mean, it gets to a point where you guys may have grown up with somebody or been with somebody for years, but once you get to a certain level, the competitive nature seems to take over sometimes, and some animosities can begin to grow, huh?
Yeah, it can make things hard, especially, you know, money, results, things like that come into play, and some guys don't like being friends with anybody, and then other guys like to be friends with everybody they race against. So, you know, everybody's kind of different, and what works for you might not work for me.
Well, I'll tell you, we had just that. We had 2 riders that grew up together through the youth ranks in basically anyway of Caleb Russell and Thad Duvall. And we saw last year that heated points race that was starting to heat up here last year. And I know there was a lot of things going around and a lot of stuff on social media from different people, not necessarily from them, but it seemed like there was a lot of animosities between those guys. But what was really cool, after everything that took place here at the John Penton race last year, there was a big blow up, not those guys, but everybody else blowing up on social media. And while everybody else was blowing up, they were mending up. They actually went to the ISDE together and kind of bridged some gaps and became friends and has really made a great championship. And I actually had a chance to talk a little bit with Thad Duvall about that this morning.
I don't know, nothing, just, you know, I have some of the best fans in the world, and, you know, sometimes you just kind of mess up listening to one fan, but, you know, it was just, you know, I got pointed a line, and, you know, it was a little too far or whatever, but, you know, no hard feelings to the guy. You know, I still talk to the guy on social media and everything else, so it's just one of those things where, you know, when there's so many I feel like there's so many eyes on me and Caleb this year, it's crazy, and even last year I felt like there was a lot of eyes on me, and, you know, so we're trying to be pretty careful nowadays and everything, and, you know, just try to stay on the track as much as possible. And, you know, it's just it's racing. You know, it happens or whatever, and you learn from your mistakes and just go from there. And, you know, it's when you're given it all, you don't really think about it in the moment. But after you sit back and think about it, there's a lot of things that you wish I could change. But, you know, it's part of racing, and new year, and just take. Each race by race. Yeah, you know, all this happened, and then we had to go like straight to 6 days, and, you know, it was just kind of, I don't know, we kind of squared some stuff up and just put it behind us. And, you know, at the end of the day, we're just 2 guys trying to make a living. So it's just, you know, I think both of us kind of matured a little bit, and, you know, I think both of us are having more fun this year than we ever have. And, you know, you know, battling with him makes the race go by a lot quicker. And, you know, I wish I was out front by a couple minutes, but it's just been the way it is. I feel like, you know, we're so evenly matched, and it's crazy to look at our bikes and listen to like our teams talk, and, you know, we're identical setups, motors, suspension, and, you know, so that it's so much harder to find that little edge at the end of the day. And, you know, he's been able to find that edge on me, and so hopefully. You know, I've been doing some homework and been trying to work on a few things, so hopefully we can get that edge on him.
Well, there you go, and just like we said, everything seems to be working good, and his wish may be coming true, but I'll tell you, there's a lot of people out there wishing for rain last night so they could get conditions like this. Look at this mulch pile. Robbie, this thing, you were probably racing it whenever it was fresh, right?
Yeah, they had it back then too.
So it has been there over 10 years.
Yeah, it's been there for a while.
That's crazy to think, and that thing, I mean, it changes its face. It's different every year, and we always expect it to be a highlight of the race course, and for some reason, it really has been, and it never really was intended to be that. It just became that. They piled up all that mulch over there for this motocross track, and whenever they didn't do as many motocross tracks, they didn't use it so much, so it just kind of sat there, and it became what it is today for the GNCC. So about 10 minutes away from seeing the lead riders again as they are out in that John Penton section, and this is where a lot of changes have been taking place. We saw things very tight at the end of the first lap, and when they came out of there at the end of the second lap, it was very, very different as far as things were kind of stretched out. So wonder what lap 3 is going to do for these guys. Again, a 5-lap race is what we have been told we're going to be in store for here today. And Johnny Gallagher joining us back here in studio. And Johnny, I know you've been out and about. Robbie and I have been chit-chatting, watching what's going on out here. What's your take on things right now?
Yeah, Rodney, it's really crazy to see how things are kind of stringing out there, and it's honestly, it's kind of surprising to see just how strung out they're getting, these gaps that are opening up. You know, it's really just it's indicative of just how strange this course is and the way things are playing out there, and it's kind of hard to see. The way these gaps have opened up, it seems to be in one section of the course, which is the John Penton section. So with that in mind, you got to wonder if things are that bad over there, or if it really just comes down to how slick the conditions are, or is it the layout of the track over there? We've seen riders go in there nose to tail and come out with minutes in between them. We haven't heard necessarily of any bottlenecks over there, but we do know that section is incredibly technical, and this whole course is just, with the 15 miles, it's really playing. I even overheard some radio chatter. They're debating on exactly how long to run the race in terms of laps, because they're really on the fence here. If they go 5 laps, they're going to be over 3 hours. But if they go 4 laps, you see Jesse Ansley, one of our XC3 riders on screen there, if they only go 4 laps, they're going to be just 2:35, 2:38, and the cutoff is 2 hours and 40 minutes. So they're, you know, if the laps get any longer, they're going to lapse at 2:40, and it would be okay to cut it off at 4 laps. But if the laps get any shorter and they have to make that decision coming up here on this next lap, are they going to throw the white flag, or are they going to give them a 2-lap card? So we'll wait and see what they decide, and that'll be a lot of our race strategy for these guys will be decided based off of that pitting strategy, exactly, you know, how much water these guys need to drink, as hot and humid as it is, and these gaps, these big gaps that we're seeing open up. We're going to see all that settled here pretty quickly, Rodney.
You almost have to wonder if these riders in their mind are thinking, let's go the 4 instead of the 5. But, you know, there are riders out there that can benefit from a 5th lap.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it seems like these gaps are kind of doing the seesaw thing. It's not like riders are just running away. The gaps are kind of shrinking. We saw riders like Ricky Russell, Lane Michael, Trevor Bollinger, and Jordan Ashburn all nose to tail battling over that. Yeah, I believe that's 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th place spot. And those guys are all still battling, so they're going to want that extra time to settle that, unless they're the one that happens to be in 5th at the time, and then they want to end it right then and there.
Well, Thad Duvall continues to lead the Wiseco John Penton GNCC. Grant Baylor back in the number 2 spot. Josh Strang is 3rd. Caleb Russell is 4th in his hometown track, and Craig DeLong back in 5th. We'll be back with more GNCC Live after this.
The halfway point is here, and these riders have endured over an hour now of hard battling through the woods at extremely high heart rates, the type the average athlete couldn't even fathom for this level of distance. Can they stick with it to the end? Don't click that X. GNCC Live on RacerTV.com continues after this.
I'm a sore loser.
I'm a sore loser. Losing is not an option for me.
To be the best.
The best. The best.
You have to have the best equipment under the hood.
That's why
I only use
Cometic products in my engines.
Cometic gasket.
Cometic gasket.
Cometic gasket.
Cometic gasket, a superior quality gasket
for those of us who demand the highest level of performance.
We handle your races, your jumps, and your trails. Isn't it time you give your daily driver the same love? AMSOIL Signature Series Synthetic Motor Oil delivers 75% more engine protection against horsepower loss and wear than required by a leading industry standard. AMSOIL also offers a full family of ATV, UTV lubricants, giving you above and beyond fortification for your weekday and weekend vehicles. AMSOIL, devoted to protection.
Lucas Oil Pro Motocross returns to the legendary High Point Raceway in Mount Morris, Pennsylvania for the 42nd annual Red Bull High Point National on Saturday, June 16th, located just 5 miles north of Morgantown off I-79 exit 1. Be trackside when the dirt flies. Go to highpointmx.com. Feel the roar of speed-only motocross ring. The races start at 1 p.m. Saturday, June 16th at High Point Raceway. Visit highpointmx.com and we'll see you at the races June 16th.
What is your passion? Hitting the perfect line, finding the perfect trail, routing the perfect adventure, or just living and breathing the moto life? Do you feel pride for a job well done after tackling a late night in the shop? Do you enjoy time spent with friends and family in the great outdoors? Spanning over 3 decades, one name has taken the lead for supplying the best powersport parts, accessories, and apparel to fuel your passion. One name that knows it goes beyond getting you the best prices, quickest shipping, or largest selection. One name that builds and innovates for our industry. One name that teaches, helps, and supports our fellow riders, racers, and organizations.
The AMSOIL GNCC series on RacerTV is brought to you in part by AMSOIL, the first in synthetics, Rocky Mountain ATVMC, get ready, and Monster Energy, unleash the beast.
And welcome back to GNCC Live from Millfield, Ohio, Sunday Creek Raceway for round 7 of the AMSOIL GNCC Series, the Wiseco John Penton GNCC. I'm Rodney Tomlin, Mikey Waynes, Johnny Gallagher, and we've been joined by former GNCC racer Robbie Jinks as well. And, of course, lots of big things going on. Thad Duvall continues to lead this one and amass an even bigger lead, it seems like, every time we see him. And Mikey Waynes is up in the Husqvarna pits right now to check in.
Rodney, big things happening down here. First of all, we know Thad's out front. Last we checked, it was Grant Baylor in second. While I was just standing here, one of the Baylor boys was towed in to the Teely Energy pit, so I'm going to head down there in just a second. But we know Josh Strang in the number 3 spot. Did this open up the window? Is he now in second? I'm going to sort all that out for you here in just a second as we're going to wrap up here in the Husqvarna pits and head down to Teely Energy, see what's going on.
All right, thanks a lot, Mikey. Yeah, jump in whenever you get a chance there because we want to know what's going on. Either Baylor boy, that is big news and a really tough break for either one of them, especially Grant in the position he is in right now. And maybe some might say even for Stu, as he's still kind of hungry with third-place position points, and not scoring points today could be rather catastrophic to any chances that he may have at knocking on the door for a possibility of a championship. So we'll check in with Mikey here in just a couple of moments. Leaders are due in about 5 minutes. We should be getting our next look at these guys at the mulch pile coming up here in just a few moments. So we'll be seeing those guys, and we'll be able to get some clocks on them pretty soon after that, and we'll know more about what the technical things are that's going on. So looks like Stu, actually, I think that might be.
No, that was.
Oh, that wasn't Stu. That was a 541. They thought it was Stu, Mikey thought it was Stu or Grant.
We did get a little misinformation. Unfortunately, the day's over for the 541 machine. Not good, but it was not Stu. It was not Grant. So first, second, and third still the same. Sorry to make you guys panic right there.
It's all right,
misinformation.
It was pretty close there. 514 is Stu. 31 is that rider there. So same 10.
And at that angle, he kind of looked like Stu from up top.
Just the wrong gear was the only thing that was throwing it off. I was like, man, did he change gear mid-race?
You never know with the Baylor boys, that's for sure. And right now, we are, again, like Johnny, joined back by Johnny Gallagher. And Johnny, back at this one. Still not, I mean, we haven't got a lot of reports of anything, but all we are seeing, and you mentioned that some gaps are tightening up and some are opening up, but wow, up front, you know, generally, I mean, I'm not unaccustomed to seeing gaps open, but here we are, and they're opening up quite a bit. I mean, we went from a 2-second gap to a 41.5-second gap in 1 lap of racing.
Yep.
And actually a lot less than that, because they were more like 7 or 8 seconds at one point there as they were heading into the John Penton section. And then by the end of that lap, that's where we saw the 40-some seconds open up.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another big gap back to Josh Strang, and another big gap back to Caleb Russell. And then still hanging tough in that 5th place overall spot. Craig DeLong, you know, that first lap, he put the good push in, leading that XC2 class and getting up there inside the top 5 overall. And he's been able to kind of park it there and stay in that spot for quite some time now. The riders that we've seen really charge, and Stu Baylor, Lane Michael, Ricky Russell, and Jordan Ashburn. Actually, we're still showing... still not showing Trevor Bollinger there, and he definitely came through battling with those guys. So I don't know what's going on with his transponder and why they're not updating it. But here is Thad Duvall coming in at the 14-mile marker at the mulch pile.
Wow, 14-mile marker. Thad Duvall making his way in, and when he checks in, then we will be able to make the decision of whether or not 4 or 5 laps. I know we were talking about that a few moments ago, and they had reported that, well, they thought that they were looking at a 5-lap race, but now, a few moments ago during commercial break, they elected to wait until the lap was complete when Thad Duvall checked in, and at that point, they would be able to make a much better judgment call, because like you said, it was within seconds.
Here we see just how tough this section exiting the mulch pile is. This guy got bucked over the handlebars, grabbed a rut, was on the ground before he knew it hit him. That's a tough little section of course there. We should be waiting and watching for the 3:14 of Grant Baylor, our 2nd place rider. Then it'll be the 1:14 of Josh Strang, as we were last told and last updated. But you know, Rodney, another thing, I don't know if Mikey Waynes can hear us over there, but maybe it is possible that Mikey might be able to get us an update from the JCR Honda pits to find out exactly what is going on with Trevor Bollinger, the ghost man out there that is not showing up and scoring, but we're seeing him out there battling for a 5th place position. So is he a lap down? Is his transponder not working? Or am I seeing things? Because I keep seeing him both in person and on screen battling right in there with Lane Michael, Ricky Russell, and Stu Baylor, but yet they're not showing him at all. So if maybe we could get Mikey to get an update on that, or somebody tell me that I'm crazy and I'm just imagining this.
I would like to be able to say that, Johnny, but I'm not sure right now either.
I mean, I'm kind of second guessing myself, but I know 3 different times I've seen him on screen, and he's not showing up and scoring. So I don't. It is possible he is a lap down, and maybe we missed him the first lap and they had some troubles. So if we could possibly get an update on that, I'm sure his JCR crew guys know. Johnny Campbell and Eric Sorotin down there hanging out. Maybe if we could find out exactly what's going on with that.
All right, thanks a lot, Mikey. Hey, looking at these results, you know, after the first lap of racing, we were talking about top 20, and there was nothing but XC1 and XC2. Well, we've got an XC3 rider.
2nd place on screen, Grant Baylor, the 3:14 machine. They were saying it was about a 3-minute gap. I don't think that was quite 3 minutes. He might have made up a little bit of time, but Rodney, the tail of the tape is going to be real clear to us here in just a few moments. And look at this, Josh Strang now on the rear wheel, basically, of Grant Baylor. He's in that corner behind him there. He has made up a gap of, what was it when we saw him checking it, scoring? 25 seconds. He's got that down now, probably closer to about 10 seconds or less. So Josh Strang, the 1:14 machine, hard on the charge.
Wow, pretty impressive stuff, and this is something that Josh has been working on making happen over the course, well, all year long, as a matter of fact, and he just hasn't been able to buy brakes. And I think we may have talked about this at the last round. I don't know that you were there, but you might know what we're talking about. It seems like every time that he seems to be back on track and things are going in his favor, all of a sudden it's like the rug's pulled out from under him, and he may not be necessarily back to square one, but he's not where he wants to be, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a long road back, as we see. He's had those foot troubles. Here is the #1 FMF KTM of Caleb Russell, our now 4th place rider on screen. And, you know, looks like he might possibly have some company behind him, but I'm going to assume that is a lapped rider because it was a big gap back from him back to the 5th place spot when we last saw. So we'll wait and see, but there is Caleb taking a look over his shoulder. And no, that is Stu Baylor. Stu Baylor, the 5th place rider, has got all the way up to the back of Caleb Russell, so he has made up a ton of time. What was he behind when they checked in at scoring?
When they checked in at 43 seconds is what he was behind Caleb.
So he's made up probably 40 seconds. He was 2 to 3 seconds behind Caleb when we saw him there. So that is a big chunk of time that Stu Baylor has made up on that 4th place position of Caleb Russell.
That is just crazy. These guys, I tell you, and it seems like both he and Grant seem to be able, when the chips are down, make up times in some of the most adverse conditions and some of the toughest, roughest spots on the racetrack.
And we got, looks like possibly, I don't know if that's Grant. It's hard to tell. That may have been Grant that we just saw on screen there. There we see, yep, that was Grant, because this is Josh Strang coming in, getting some fuel. That IMS dump can, you can see he's taking another water, making sure he stays hydrated in his pursuit to track down the 314 machine of Grant Baylor. And then we've got a pretty decent sized gap back there to Caleb, probably pretty close to a minute if I had to guess. So definitely upwards of 45 seconds, which is what it was when we had last seen from Strang back to Caleb last lap. So,
well, I tell you, what an amazing accomplishment for Josh Strang if he makes his way back. Not that he's never seen the podium before, not that he's never won races before, but because of some of the struggles that he does seem to have, and he's not as prevalent on the podium as we've seen him in years past, but to get that taste of the podium and get back into that flow of things, we might start to see bigger and better things out of Josh. He's had a long road to hoe coming back from that ankle injury a few years ago.
Rodney, if we refresh our screen there, I don't know that it's shown. Oh, it does show Grant has checked in, so Grant may not have fueled that lap. 2 minutes 17 seconds, does that say? 2 minutes 17 seconds behind in the 2nd place spot. And here comes Josh Strang now checking in. So he's actually, with that pit stop, he gave up quite a bit of time to Grant Baylor. So one would have to assume that Grant Baylor did not pit that lap.
15 seconds. Go ahead. Wow, got some hydration and rolled on, Mikey Wayne says, as Josh Strang checks in 3rd place, 15.2 seconds behind Grant Baylor. Caleb Russell was 1 minute and 1 second behind in 4th place a lap ago, and I have to think, Johnny, that he may be in that very same or worse, not necessarily worse, but a little further back position here.
And what did we ultimately decide here? Did they decide to throw the white flag or the 2-lap card, or do we not know yet? We're waiting to see. He's got the 2-lap card out, so it's going to be a 5-lap race.
Yep, 2-lap
so this one's going to go right up to near 3 hours.
Yep, so the 2-lap board is out. Caleb Russell is in, 43 seconds behind Josh Strang. He's picked up the pace a little bit. Stu Baylor only 6 seconds behind Caleb Russell. Lap times, 38:12 for Duval, 39:48 for Grant Baylor. He slowed way down, 39:38 for Josh Strang.
And there is Trevor Bollinger, I believe, on screen. So that was the rider that we had thought we maybe had been missing. We'll see here to see if he is still in that battle with Ricky Russell and the rest, but it looks like if he was, he has fallen back at least a little bit from that battle. But we don't see him anywhere on our scoring whatsoever, so we'll have to find out what's going on there, but that was definitely him on screen again, or appeared to be, unless he's got a doppelganger out there.
Caleb Russell, 43.8 seconds back and 4th. Stu Baylor, 6.2 seconds back in the 5th place position as we roll through these top 5 checking in now. And like I say, we're going to find out what's going on here with Josh Strang when he checks in a few moments to see if he is in that 6th place position. I think he is. I think it was just a transponder issue from that first lap. But like I said, it would adjust itself here if it was that here at the end of lap number 3 as we roll through what we just found out by looking at the 2-lap board. Johnny mentioned a 5-lap total race. Going through the FMF PowerPoint, and that was Thad.
He's now left the FMF PowerPoint, so we've got the rest of the riders working their way through. Looks like they're not actually running the FMF PowerPoint anymore. It's supposed to turn and go up there. So this is the straight across the bottom, I guess. Things must have gotten...
Well, yesterday watching, that was where that off-camber uphill section was, and that had to be tricky and gnarly.
Yeah, I actually did a wheelie pivot unintentionally trying to pass a lapper there and drop way back. Here we see Ricky Russell on the moto track, the 212 NFAB AM Pro Yamaha, and there again, There's the mystery man, the man who's not showing up and scoring, Trevor Bollinger. That is definitely him, the 739 JCR Honda. Again, right in that battle with Ricky Russell and those guys, Jordan Ashburn in there somewhere, and Lane Michael. Those are the guys that have been together all day. So if you're watching at home, the overall results may be a little bit off. We'll find out what we can find out for you here, but we keep seeing this guy in the battle. He just doesn't show up in the actual official scoring.
Well, he is certainly in there. It's I think they had him listed as 12th. So, like I say, things happen, and this should adjust itself without. I mean, even if they don't go back and change anything, and at this point, I don't guess there's a whole lot need to. But regardless, we're going to see that he is checking in a top 5 position, and that's where he's been basically riding all day long. Even though at one point we felt like we may have lost him for a few moments.
Yeah, I think we're actually down to Ricky Russell was 10th now, they're showing. So this would be coming in to get the 2-lap card, so it'd be.
Well, right there we go as we see, I believe, Bollinger. Did he check in right there? All right, we're getting ready to head up to Mikey Waynes with Trevor Bollinger's dad, and maybe he can tell us what's going on. Mikey?
Hey, guys, down here in the JCR pits. I saw that, Eric. They called you Trevor Bollinger's dad.
Well, sometimes you got to be the father figure.
Well, tell us, Johnny Campbell down here. Man, tell us about what's going on. Trevor Bollinger not checking in, maybe some transponder issues, but you know exactly where he's at.
Yeah, currently Trevor's in 9th XC1 position. He came by and basically kind of looking like something's going on, maybe physically, like a leg or something. He held it out, so I really don't know. He was doing fine up in 5th, and he's dropped back tremendously, so obviously he's got some sort of issues.
There you go. Thank you. Appreciate it. JCR pits down here. The Johnny Campbell pits.
So there we go. That is not Trevor Bollinger's father. That is Johnny Campbell, the team owner. Although, maybe again, he said he is the father figure. But nonetheless, Trevor Bollinger is out there circulating in 9th place in the XC1. Probably put him somewhere in the 12-13 overall position. And maybe we should get with timing and scoring and let them know that they are not scoring him.
Yeah, I think they'll probably figure that out pretty quickly. Yeah, and I want to go on record as saying that I thought that he was really with Trevor Bollinger's dad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's we see Stu Baylor on screen there, and man, now we got it all messed up. That is Caleb Russell and Stu Baylor coming through. Again, still that very close gap, just a few seconds between those two, and that is at the time the 4th and 5th place positions in the XC1 class. And now overall, as Craig DeLong has fallen back to that 6th place spot with Stu Baylor taking over the lead in that class. DeLong, though, still holding what looks to be a 26-second lead over Josh Toth in that XC2 class. So Craig DeLong has led this one basically from hole shot all the way through 2 hours into this thing. And the lead's been shrinking a little bit. Josh Toth's been chipping away at it. But Craig DeLong's been doing a great job of managing this race so far in that XC2 class.
Well, Josh Toth's another one of those riders that seems to really shine as the race wears on, and he's able to make up time later in the race. See if he's able to do that here today or not. Wouldn't surprise me if he could, because, like I say, a lot of the New Englanders seem to be doing very well as far as with the conditions here at the Wiseco John Penton GNCC today. Taking a look at the top 10 overall real quick. Duval, Graham Baylor, Josh Strang, 1, 2, and 3. Caleb Russell now 43 seconds back and forth, and Stu Baylor is only 6.2 seconds behind Caleb Russell. Craig DeLong, leader of the XC2 250 Pro class, is 6th. 2nd is Josh Toth on the 206, 27 seconds back. 8th is Jordan Ashburn on the number 12. 9th place, Benjamin Kelly. He's 3rd in the XC2 250 Pro class and 9th overall. And Ricky Russell, the 212, rounds out the top 10 overall on his Ampro Yamaha. Now, with that, looking at the end of lap number 2, we had Open A rider Levi Keller in the 20th place overall position, and just ahead of him, FMF XC3 125 Pro-Am rider Jason Raines, the 916, was leading after that second lap, according to timing and scoring. So with that, Johnny, here in just a few moments, we're going to give them a few more moments for everybody to come through with maybe 2 to possibly 3 laps, and we'll give you a complete breakdown whenever these riders head in over to the John Penton section here shortly. But in the meantime, A lot of things to talk about and a lot of things to look at here in these front three classes. And one that we haven't really talked a whole lot about today has been that FMF XC3 125 Pro-Am class. Jason Rains out front in this one, and as I remember at the end of that first lap, we saw what was a pretty intense, heated battle. Alex Teagard and Jason Langenbeck or actually it was Jesse Ansley, wasn't it? Jesse Ansley battling at that first lap.
There's Thad Duvall, your leader, coming into the Monster Energy Mile there, the 989 Rockstar Racing Husqvarna. He goes way out wide to get a run for that. I thought maybe Thad decided he was going to take it back to the hauler there for a minute, but he wanted to make sure that he was going to get plenty of runs, so he swung out wide. Now we know we've got a 2-minute and 17-second gap is what it was at the finish line back to the number 314 of Grant Baylor there in that second place position. So we got a little bit of time here, Rodney. Didn't mean to cut you off, just didn't want to miss that on screen there.
Well, now we got Alex Teagard, or actually Jason Rains out front. I think he was in like 3rd or 4th place at the end of that first lap. He's out front in the class now. He's got a 22-second lead over Alex Teagard. Jason Langenbeck has gotten up there into the number 3 spot. He's 2 minutes and 11 seconds behind Teagard, and Jesse Ansley a couple of seconds behind him with Cody Barnes, the 99, rounding out the top 5. That's some big changes in that class right there whenever you look at that one.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like you said there, we were watching those guys battle through the final turns on the moto track, working their way in towards the finish, and it was Teagard. Actually, it was Jesse Ansley leading the way, and Teagard passed him about 2 turns before the finish line there, or should we say the finish of that lap, and was able to take over the lead to lead that first lap. And then it was the Jason Langenbeck was there in 3rd, just a few seconds behind, with Jason Rains hot on his heels. So the top 4 were all only separated by probably less than 20 seconds. So Rains was able to put the hammer down, get up there up front, and take over the lead. And kind of the 2 guys that have still up there battling are Rains and Alex Teagard, and then we know that on back from there, things have really gotten strung out. As you said, a 2-minute plus gap back to, was it Jacob or Jason Langenbeck? Sorry. Jason Langenbeck. So he's in that 3rd place spot, hanging on to that final position out of, looks like Clarksburg, Massachusetts. So that's one of those northeastern riders that we were talking about that are riding real well here today. And then Jesse Ansley out of Mayaca City, Florida, in the 4th place spot. They're just a couple seconds out of that podium position. So those are the riders that are really battling over those podium spots right now.
Well, you know, I know when the 4-stroke revolution all came around, a lot of the people used to talk about how much more of an advantage a 4-stroke motor had while racing because of the way the power rolled on and different things like that. Now that we've got this FMF XC3 125 Pro-Am class, I wonder, and has technology evened the playing field out between those guys, but are these 125 riders at a little bit of a disadvantage as far as the conditions today?
Here is our 2nd place rider, Grant Baylor, on screen, the 314 machine, and he does not take the out and around line to get a run.
Steam.
He just goes, he sits on that back fender like Grant Baylor does, and he tractors it right up there.
You see the steam coming off that bike? Would that just be water splashing up?
Yeah, water splashing coming through, and there is the 114 Josh Strang still hot on his heels. Looks like when we had seen him, it was 15 seconds after Josh Strang pitted and Grant Baylor did not. That gap has closed down considerably. So right now, Josh Strang is the rider on the move. He is reeling in the 2nd place rider, the 314 Teely Energy rider of Grant Baylor. So Josh Strang going up there, happy to be running for a podium, would be his 1st of the year, I do believe. But he's wanting a little bit more than that. He's wanting to go after Grant for that 2nd place spot.
For sure, and again, yeah, I think you're right about Josh Strang. He's been in.
Whoa, that is a big change. That doesn't seem to be the kind of gap that it was. What
looks a lot tighter.
What did we have it scoring?
43 seconds, I think.
Maybe it was that long. We were talking there for a good little bit, but and there we see. Oh, was that Stu that went around the outside there? Is that Stu that's... Nope, that's not Stu. So Stu Baylor seems to have lost the toe there. Caleb Russell was able to close that gap up possibly a little bit, and Stu Baylor has dropped off the back of Caleb Russell. He was less than 5 seconds when we saw him last, and unless he made a miraculous charge around the outside as the camera was out of focus, I don't think that we have seen him come through. So folks, we may have at least temporarily lost Stu Baylor, the 514 Teely. There he is. The 514 Teely Energy KTM rider is now coming through, and he is probably 25 to 30 seconds or more behind Caleb Russell. So he has lost some serious time in just that, I believe, 6 miles, of course, since we saw him last at the finish line.
Wow, that's a lot of time. A lot of changes, too, but again, conditions warranting this. And as surprised as I sound, I have to admit, I am and was expecting some things out of the ordinary to take place here. And I guess when I expect things out of the ordinary, I say that's rather a broad statement. I sound like a palm reader or something whenever I say that. But in reality, I mean, you get certain feelings on certain days that something's about to happen, and sometimes you don't know what it is, but you have an idea. Yesterday, I had that feeling about the ATV race. We saw some big things happen in that one yesterday, and just this weekend in general, I think, is presenting us with a lot of excitement at this halfway point of the 2018 championship season.
A number 12 factory beta, Jordan Ashburn, there on screen, the guy that I've been missing all day because I'm failing at life. He is hard on the throttle and working his way through. A great mud rider. Normally, Jordan really likes the mud. Today, he's parlayed that into what appears to be a 6th place ride at the moment. Closely behind him when they checked in at scoring was Ricky Russell, and there he is right on cue, the 212 NFAB Ampro Yamaha rider, charging up. Got a little bit of a lapped rider in the mix there, and some other riders we're expecting to check through pretty much any time are, that may have been one of them there. I think that might have been Bollinger, and that is possibly Craig DeLong. Yep, that was DeLong who just checked through there, the number 8 Coastal Racing Husqvarna rider. And next we should be watching for Josh Toth. Should be working his way through here pretty much any minute. Lane Michael also up in that battle. That may have been the other rider that we saw that was all mud covered, was hard to identify. And again, the 739 of Trevor Bollinger also in the mix here, a rider that we should be seeing any moment come by here through the Monster Energy Mile at the 6-mile marker. Rodney, you were saying about that XC3 125 Pro-Am class. As we see, this is somebody who's hard on the throttle, the number 530 of Ben Kelly. So don't know if he has taken over the 2nd place ride away from Josh Toth, or did we miss Josh Toth? There was another rider that came through there actually ahead of Craig DeLong, so it's possible that Toth may have taken over the lead, but there was nobody that came through after Craig DeLong. So Toth has either dropped back to 3rd, or he is out in that 1st place position. So we'll wait and we'll see. Unfortunately, we've got a long time till we get to find out, Rodney.
Well, I'll tell you right now, if you look at the tail of the clock right now, Craig DeLong had turned a 39-minute 50-second lap time in lap number 3, as opposed to Josh Toth, who was at a 39.39. It was only 11 seconds faster. The gap was 26 seconds, but it looks like that maybe momentum was certainly becoming more on Toth's side there as that lap was winding down.
Yeah, so it may have been Josh Toth that we saw that had taken over the lead in that XC2 Pro Lights class. But back to that FMF XC3 125 Pro-Am class, you know, you were saying, are those guys at a disadvantage, and that's why we're not seeing them maybe charge up as high into the overalls. I think a lot has to depend upon the track itself. You know, as the conditions get worse, those bikes can be harder to ride, but if it's a heavy, sticky mud, it can almost be an advantage. Here we see Trevor Bollinger, the 739 machine, and I have to agree with Johnny Campbell. Definitely does not seem to be a sense of urgency or a sense of aggression out of Trevor Bollinger. He's kind of, as Johnny said, just kind of flailing through out there still, I believe still in that 9th place position in the XC1 class, but definitely not riding the way that we've seen Trevor riding throughout much of 2018, up in there battling for podiums and actually landing on the podium in one event this year. You know, a rider that we anticipate seeing battling well inside the top 5. And he's a rider that we do expect to see up there battling in those positions today. As hard as he was charging early, just not able to get up in there. And Rodney, I think we actually had an opportunity to speak with Trevor Bollinger about some cool things that are going on for him and his team here before the race today.
Yeah, they've been going good. You know, I've been busy these last few weeks. I had to go out to California and was able to go ride in Mexico, and then, you know, with the GNCC racing too. So yeah, it's been a busy few weeks, but I'm looking forward to getting out here and racing today.
What was the purpose of the California trip, man?
Honda released their new 2019 bikes, so yeah, we went out there and hung out with those guys, and now we're here. I didn't really get to ride it, you know, we were just there for the promotion or whatever, but I think the frame's different and the swing arm's a little different, so yeah, I can't wait to get my hands on one and try it out.
Well, that's cool. You got a chance to look at the new 2019 Hondas that are going to be released soon. So check out some things out in Cali.
Is that Lane Michael?
I'm not sure. I can't quite see the number through the mud and the trees right now.
That is definitely one of the KR4 riders. I saw the Husqvarna logo on his jersey. Can't see the number. can't tell. That could be one of the amateur KR4
That
riders.
is a red background.
Okay, then that is Lane Michael. So Lane Michael having some major problems here. Was up battling in when we had last seen him. He was in the 11th place overall, which would have put him 8th place in XC1 Pro. And he is now way back behind that. He's behind Trevor Bollinger, so he's dropped back, and he's having some major struggles here. They're trying to dry his grips off, just can't seem to hang on to this thing, and he's losing some major time.
Now back to the problems that plague you on a muddy day. This is one of those, the wet hands and the mud. And again, as this mud does tend to tack up and dry up a little bit, that has to be even more so, you would think, here at John Penton. That could be a bigger problem.
Yeah, you know, it's just so slick and hard to ride as it is, and when your grips are covered in mud and your gloves are trashed, yeah, that is definitely Lane Michael. And you can tell by his body posture, he is just kind of really struggling right now, trying to do everything he can do to go, but he's just having a hard time hanging on, a hard time riding, and he looks like he is absolutely exhausted, and tough day for him so far, it appears, or at least a tough section there.
Yeah, and I had a chance to talk with Lane as we headed into this race day to day as well.
It's really just putting yourself in a good position in the beginning of the race. If you get 2 minutes back on the first couple laps, I mean, you don't stand a chance anymore. So just got to put yourself in a good position off the start and be smart and steady, and just be there when the white flag throws.
Back out here at the Monster Miles, Lane Michael having those issues out there, and you know, you have to think that one day Lane Michael's going to get the break.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that's a rider that we've seen really have some great sprint speed. We saw him up into the top 3 overall many times on corrected time. So it's not surprising that, you know, we see him occasionally up there, you know, really battling inside the top 5 in that XC1 class. But we kind of been, like you said, waiting for that breakthrough ride for him. And once that happens, sometimes it just takes the confidence to put you over the hill.
Well, the boys are out in the backwoods for a few moments, the John Penton section. While the leaders are doing that, we'll keep an ear out on the radio and with our producers, and we're going to check in with some of these classes as we'll check the top 5 and each of our classes as we roll through lap number 3 here for our, actually would be lap 4 for our pro riders, as they are going to be doing 4 laps. We got the 2-lap board out right now, and after 3 laps of racing for the pros and 2 now for this Senior A 40+ class, Shotgun Sean Remington still out front in this one out of New Salem, Pennsylvania. Near 4-minute lead over Frank Messina, the 403 from Campbell Hall, New York. John Beaver, the 406 from Gray, Tennessee, is 3rd. In the 4th place position, the 107 of William Lackey from Hickory, North Carolina, and the 880 Jeremy Dexter from Nelsonville, Ohio, is 5th. All right, looks like we got exciting things going on in the pits. You know, this is a KTM weekend, and we keep talking about that and all the great things with John Penton being here, KTM Youth Day, and, of course, our champion and points leader is also on a KTM, and we're talking about Caleb Russell. And what a better and fitting tribute to KTM and Caleb's program than to do our GNCC Rigs Tour with Caleb Russell this weekend.
What's going on, guys? I'm Caleb Russell. This is GNCC Rigs, and here's a look inside of the FMF Factory KTM Racing Rig. Here's obviously where the mechanics work on the bikes. They prep them after each race. They frame them in here on Fridays and Saturdays, and they put them back together. And it's my bike, Josh Toth, and Ben Kelly's. And then we got their toolboxes out here, and it's just all cut out real nice. Just got all your pliers and screwdrivers, and everything's got its place and nothing's a mess. So it's really kind of really neat, really fancy. So yeah, here's the inside. It's here's the kitchenette area. Got a microwave, Keurig, another fridge, just kind of empty. We just got finished up with dinner and stuff. So over here's all of our hardware drawers. Super neat, just kind of anything you need. This is sort of the electrical drawer. All your nuts and bolts, pretty much build the bike from the frame up, and anybody needs a bolt at the race, they forget something, they lose something, break something. If you're at a 250F, 350F, any modern 4-stroke or 2-stroke, they probably have a part here to fit your bike. So, and they sell items to the public as well. So yeah, so in this drawer we got some graphics, just all brand new stuff. Nice and organized again, you know. And over here we got some engine cover parts, and it's kind of all assembled, ready to go. And then the big money stuff's over here. Here's my spare suspension. It goes on the bike on a rack, slides out, back in. Then we got another cabinet here just full of exhausts. Like I said, there's 2-stroke stuff on here, so all of our 4-stroke FMF 4.0. We'll go ahead and go upstairs. This is the lounge area. But yeah, it's just a little lounge area. Come in here, do a debrief, talk strategy, what have you not. They check emails, do all that sort of managerial role stuff. So here's where they haul the bikes and the tool carts outside. And, they've got just a bunch more spare engines up here underneath these cabinets to the left. So there you have it. There's the FMF KTM factory racing rig, and hope you guys enjoyed. There's a lot of cool stuff in there. Happy I was able to share it with you guys.
And that's a real GNCC rig right there. Wow, that was pretty spectacular. I mean, that
absolutely. That's a lot of kids' dream come true. They walk past that rig week in and week out, and those big signs outside that say staff only. And understandably so. Obviously, they got a business to run out of there, and they got a lot of go fast parts and things they can't have people just walking through there like it's community property. But at the same time, for people to get to see what's in there, it's kind of an eye-opening experience to how the best of the best do it and get it done. And when it comes to GNCC racing, it's tough to beat the factory boys. The FMF factory KTM team has won the championship I don't know how many times in the last 10 years, but it's been a whole lot, and they've all come out of that rig right there.
They sure have, and I'll tell you, they got enough parts up there. Like Caleb said, I think one time they could almost build a bike out of the parts and stuff that they have there, and I think it's really neat. And what's really cool is anything that Caleb's mechanic needs, basically, if something happens during a race, he's got it. All he's got to do is go in there to one of those drawers, grab it, and replace it. And that's why we see those guys go so quick, in those pit stops and stuff. Almost seem like NASCAR pit stops because they planned for this stuff. I mean, that stuff was put in here at the beginning of the year, and I know that all the mechanics and everybody up there are hardworking individuals, and they put a lot of dedication into it. And there's an awful lot of dedication by Caleb Russell's mechanic. He is certainly obviously a top-notch mechanic, and he is in tune also with his rider Caleb Russell. We had a chance to actually catch up with him this weekend as well.
Hi, my name's Tanner Harding. I'm Caleb Russell's mechanic. For now, actually, I'm a fill-in mechanic for Cody Richelderfer, who is typically Caleb Russell's mechanic. I was Caleb Russell's mechanic from 2011 until this last year. Cody has taken over and been Caleb's full-time mechanic now, but he recently got injured. He broke his femur, and I've been asked to fill in because I have experience with Caleb, and so here I am again back with him. Caleb's a very smart rider. Usually he will ride within his means there and kind of play the safe game and play the long game, really. In 2014 in Indiana, Caleb grabbed a little bit too much front brake, and it locked up for a quick second, and then it grabbed again, and it flung him right over the bars. And then we ran back to the pits to go pit him, and he came in with no silencer, and nobody knew what happened. It was like, we just saw you a second ago, and you still had your silencer, and now you don't. It was a pretty quick fix. We have a ton of spare parts in here that are ready to go in any instance, so it was just a matter of going and grabbing a new one and bolting it on and having him go out again. But the subframe was bent, so it was a little tricky for fitment. Caleb was actually able to put in a really impressive ride after that, and despite being, a couple of minutes down, he came back and almost passed Thad Duvall for third. Hi, I'm Tanner Harding. I'm Caleb Russell's mechanic. We're here at the Penton GNCC, and I'm excited to see how he's going to do today. Hi, my name's Tanner Harding.
All righty, thank you very much. And wow, Tanner, good to see him back. Tanner's been a big part of the success, I think, of the Caleb Russell success story, even though his new mechanic obviously is a top-notch mechanic. But having him here, Tanner, back, even if it is on a tentative schedule right now, I think it's got to be pretty good for Caleb.
Yeah, absolutely. Those guys, they build a relationship and a rapport over the years, and the guys worked together a long time now, won a number of championships, and Tanner just took on a new role, was working more on the suspension side of things so he could stay closer to home and Caleb's full-time mechanic, Cody, as he said, broke his femur, had to sit out at least a couple races, probably through the summer break. So Tanner was tapped to fill right back in, and he was able to come right in just as it had never left, you know. So definitely good to have him back. Good to have him back here at the races, and you know, he's one of the dynamic duos of GNCC Racing. You know, there's a lot of good teams out here and a lot of good riders. You know, we see today it's one of those things where we've obviously gotten to see the inner workings of Caleb's program from his rig to his mechanic, but today the man on a mission is Thad Duvall, the 989 Rockstar Racing Husqvarna. He's the guy out front charging the way, and another Rockstar Racing Husqvarna rider that's having a big weekend here in more ways than one. And actually, I kind of just thought of this when we were talking. Josh Strang, obviously his wife is pregnant and is due, well, now. So they were speaking before the race, and Josh said, what are you going to do if your water breaks and we're going to have this baby? And she said, well, I'll put it on the pit board and they'll let you know which hospital they took me to, and I'll see you there after the race. And obviously at the time, Josh said, well, I'll just stop and you know, go ahead and get out of my gear and I'll take you to the hospital. Well, at this point, you know, he's battling over a second place position. I got a feeling he's going to say, hey, babe, you know, usually it takes a while once your water breaks. You know, certainly don't want to miss the birth of my first child, but I think we're going to be okay. We're down to the last half hour of this race. I'm going to finish this thing out. You just hang tough there. There we see Nick O'Brien, another local Ohio rider, working his way through the finish there on his motorcycle shop Yamaha, working his way through. His parents own that, and his dad, I believe, was out there racing this morning as well.
And, of course, as we roll through this Weisco John Penton GNCC, nearly 2.5 hours into this race now. Wow, what an amazing race day we have seen. Some stories unfold in this one, and right now as we watch, it's still Thad Duvall. I mean, riding the dream, the ride I think that he had hoped to ride, the redemption ride from the win there just a year ago. And if you want to see this all again in the condensed version, I believe we'll have a lot of great action for you to watch on NBC Sports on June 23rd. Check your local listings for the exact time, but the Weisco John Penton GNCC will be on NBC Sports June 23rd. Tune in and check it out. Also, don't forget, coming up is the Snowshoe GNCC in a couple more rounds, and the Friday before the Snowshoe GNCC traditionally has become Golf Tournament Friday, and it's an ISDE fundraiser where like Auntie Callanan told us yesterday, thousands of dollars are always picked up through that fundraising golf tournament, and it helps fund the team's efforts in going to the international 6-day events that take place. And you know, Auntie is certainly proud of the accomplishments that they've been able to make, and he thinks with continued support of folks through the golf tournament and other sponsorships and things like that, that they can continue to do well and bring home more World Championships. Man, I just want to actually do well on that thing for once. We've played, I've played every year for the past couple, and last year actually had a good team, and we had brought in a ringer, Digital Dave, who now drives the CST tires truck. At the time was Digital Dave Photography. I found out he used to be an ex-pro golfer, so we brought him in. It was myself, Chris Bach, Becca Sheets. So we had a girl's a key. You got to be able to play from those ladies' tees because it is a scramble. But man, every time you think you might win it, one of the Baylor boys comes in. Their team comes in with some nearly unbelievable score. So they had some college ringers on their team, and they had brought, I think, 2 college golfers, and I think they came in under us by like 3 strokes. Or actually, it might have been Caleb Russell's team as well. Each of those guys always put together a really good team. So the mere mortals amongst us even can't quite play with those guys, but still a lot of fun, and like you said, for a great cause, helping fund America's efforts to ISDE to defend, last year to defend the title, and this year to go back and try and win it back. Go to GNCCRacing.com. There's information there on how you can register for the ISDE golf tournament, fundraising golf tournament there at Snowshoe. Again, it's the Friday leading into Snowshoe GNCC. We hope to see you all there. Back to the racing action here in Sunday Creek Raceway, and just want to remind you we will be back here again next weekend on an amateur motocross level. Actually, the youth regional qualifier is going to be taking place here at Sunday Creek Raceway, and race fans that are close by would like to see some of the nation's top caliber racers come right back here with us next week, Saturday and Sunday, for Moto 1, 2, and 3 throughout the course of the weekend. Our leaders due in here pretty soon, and as we take a look at these times, I mean, leaders due in 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Let's do some time. That would put us somewhere in the neighborhood of a 2-hour 36 35-minute lap time, and as you pointed out, we needed to have, what was it, a 2 hour and 40-minute. So that still puts us about 4 to 6 minutes short of where we need to be. So that's why the officials elected to go with the 5 laps rather than the 4 laps. And they wanted to make sure things didn't slow down before they made that call, and wise call on their part for sure. Watching near the mulch pile, here comes Thad Duvall now. Duvall, the 989, has pretty much led this race basically from the very early goings of this race. Josh Strang got the whole shot out there on the 114. Duvall was right behind him, and it's, wow, I mean, and Duvall got around him, and once he got around him, he's gone. I mean, he just
I'll tell you what,
out.
he just looks so good, Rodney, so comfortable, so fast. Look, I believe that was his mechanic, Tanner Tremaine, out there that was cheering him on, letting him know, hey, Thad, you're doing it right. Last time we saw, like you said, upwards of 2 minutes that he had on Grant Baylor. And as we're watching Thad work his way through there, and we're looking at the time, 2:32 is the time that he came through there, or 2:32:15 is when we saw him, but 2:32 is where we're at right now. I would say he's less than 2 minutes away from scoring. So Rodney, you were pretty spot on with your estimate there. Right around 2:34-ish is what that will be for 4 laps complete. So that would have been a good 6 minutes short of the required 2 hours 40 minutes. So as much as it kind of sucks for these guys, and this race is going to run long, I think they're going to be over 3 hours, although not by a whole lot. You know, they are going to be over, you know, maybe in the 3:10-ish range. Right. So unfortunately, on a hot day like today, technical conditions, we're going to have a lot of riders that are incredibly tired. But you know, GNCC racing is the toughest of the tough, and these guys are going to manage their energy level and manage their efforts, knowing once they come through and don't see that checkered flag, they're going to know, oh man, we got one more to go. Because some of these guys are coming through and they haven't yet seen the 2-lap card. Not your leaders, but some of the amateur riders. So now they're going to come through, and with Thad ahead of them, they're going to see the white flag. So that's going to be a welcome sight. But I think a lot of these guys are probably hoping for the checkered at 2 hours and 33 minutes in. But 3-hour races, that's what we run here, and that's what we shoot for. So today they're going to do that and then some.
Well, Thad Duvall now through the pro pits, the VP Fuels Pro Row. That is actually the auxiliary pro pit section of that as we head up to the main pro pit road now. And Thad Duvall, basically, it may not be the last lap yet. He'll be taking the white flag, but wow, this almost looks like a victory lap started a little early. And I'm not saying that's because that's the way he's riding, but he just looks like that. I mean, he's just so confident in the flow that he's got going right now. Impeccable and very interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think he may have missed a water bottle handoff there because he saw, I believe that was the Rockstar Racing Husqvarna truck driver, Blue, there. He looked over and saw him at the last minute and kind of looked back. You know, as much as Thad is out there kind of looking like he's in cruise mode, he is still absolutely flying. I'm sure he's expending a lot of energy and using up a lot of his body's hydration and moisture right now. So we wouldn't be surprised if we see somebody come running across with a water bottle again there and say, hey, you want another shot at this thing, buddy? Because it looked like you missed it the first time. So these guys are, you know, they've got everything calculated down to a science. Not only the fuel that their machine needs, but also the fuel that their bodies need. And that's what's in those bottles that you see them taking. There's no magic potion. It's just water, and sometimes there's an electrolyte mix or some type of a what they call a meal supplement powder. Because again, these guys are out there for 3 hours. They need to take on those calories. But there it is, folks. The white flag is waving. The 989 Rockstar Racing Husqvarna of Thad Duvall, a local product from just nearly less than an hour away in Williamstown, West Virginia. Again, we've talked about it a number of times. Thad physically winning the race here last year, and then having some issues after the fact, and ultimately ending up second on the day, or it may have even been third. I think it was third. There was two penalty positions, but enough about that. The point is, today he's trying to prove a point. A guy that's proving a point right now, Josh Strang, unless we miss Grant Baylor. This is the 114 machine of Josh Strang, and also this would mean that this would be a 1-2 sweep of the top 2 positions for the Rockstar Racing Husqvarna team, and Josh Strang right now leading the way. Well, in that second place spot over Grant Baylor.
And that's monumental for both those riders individually, and as you pointed out, it's monumental for the Rockstar Energy Husqvarna team itself. So pretty exciting things on the horizon. I was thinking about that a moment ago. Just having the 2 on the podium is a pretty big achievement, especially seeing the long road back for Josh Strang.
And look at this. This is Caleb Russell now. Have we lost Grant Baylor, or did we miss him? Before we start handing the second place position over to Josh Strang, we need to figure out if that is Stu Baylor there, now still behind, hot on the heels of Caleb Russell.
Whoa!
Stu Baylor very nearly ejects over the handlebars. That was a wild ride for the 514 machine. So, Rodney, what do? Do we assume that we missed Grant? The camera did pan away for a minute. Did we miss him? Or we'll know here soon. They'll be checking in.
Wow, I don't know, Johnny. I'm not going out on a limb just yet because we know. We're hearing that Grant Baylor's bike is maybe having some heating issues, overheating issues, and that would make a lot of sense with the temperatures today and the sticky mud that they've got out there, and I'm really surprised we haven't seen a lot more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. We did just have a rider peep through that tree section there and looked like he was going pretty fast. Not sure who that was. If we see, that may have been... Nope, that is a lapped rider there. So we'll wait and we'll watch, and I'm actually going to peep my head out the studio here and see if I can see.
Well, I'm thinking that I mean,
there is Strang right there. So unless we miss Grant again, which it does not appear that we have, it appears that Josh Strang now in that second place position. And look at that, Rodney, ditching his Camelback. That thing was obviously empty. It was of no more use to him. And he said, adios, this thing's out of here. And I'm off, and I'm trying to charge after the leader and get away from this guy chasing me.
Oh, imagine that cold breeze going down his back's got to be some inspiration as well. And with Josh Strang appearing to have moved up into the number 2 spot. We are waiting right now at the finish line. I am thinking, you know, we had a 2-minute deficit and a difference there a lap ago. But what I'm seeing right now is I'm seeing maybe closer to a 4-minute gap in between those positions, Johnny. So that's something certainly we're going to want to keep a very close eye on right now and see what that gap is. And I'll tell you, wow, how impressed, well, not necessarily impressive, but how much confidence could this be of a builder for Thad Duvall if he does have a 4 or 5 minute lead over the rest of the field?
Absolutely, a big shift in confidence for sure. We see Josh Strang working his way to the finish. And Rodney, what we're missing right now is Stu Baylor's bike is not refiring coming out of the Teely Energy Racing pits. They are trying to bump start him. I wish we could see this. His bike is not starting. They are pushing him all the way down the VP Fuels Pro row, and they still are not getting his bike started. He is losing valuable time. We can see them up there. Actually, it's a way further to the left if we can get that camera to go left. Yeah, we're missing it. I don't know. I can't see. He's gone out of sight now. But he actually came in and passed Caleb Russell, took over that second place spot or third place spot momentarily, and then his bike would not refire when it left the VP Racing Fuel Pro row. We see there it looks like he did finally get it refired. There was 4 guys pushing him all the way down the VP Fuels Pro row, and now he is back out there in that 4th place spot.
He had a 44-second cushion over Caleb Russell whenever they went into the 3rd lap or 4th lap of racing as we're wrapping up lap number 4 right now. So that cushion may be the saving grace that's going to keep him on the podium right now. 3 minutes, 28 seconds. Actually, Russell checks in 47 seconds behind Josh Strang now, so things are starting to heat up. 3 minutes, 28 seconds behind Duvall is Josh Strang, so Russell is now into that number 3 spot, 47 seconds back. And how much time did Grant Baylor lose? That cushion of 43 seconds?
No, that's going to be Stu Baylor, not Grant.
I meant Stu Baylor, yeah. Grant Baylor having overheating issues. We've got to point that out. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. 5:14. He has checked in. What's our gap there, Rodney?
The gap now 21 seconds. So, wow, probably a minute that Stu messed around that bike trying to get it back going. So that's a definite heartbreaker. But at the same time, the adrenaline's got to be pumping right now. And as always, Caleb Russell likes to pick it up, wick it up whenever possible on these final laps like this. This could be very interesting between Baylor and Caleb Russell.
Yeah, and we did see, again, that gap from first to second, 3 minutes, 28 seconds, so a big gap there. And then another 47 seconds back to Caleb Russell, which is about the same it's kind of been. It's been hovering in that 45 seconds to a minute gap there. And now the heated battle is over that final podium position between Caleb Russell in 3rd and Stu Baylor in 4th. We have lost Grant Baylor, unfortunately for him. Don't know if he is just a little further back and is able to get that machine going, or if he is actually out of today's race. We'll keep watching, we'll keep updating, and we'll see if we can get exactly a lowdown on what is going. Again, track crew and our producers have told us that Grant Baylor was having some overheating issues. We don't know if that meant that he had to stop for coolant or spray out the radiators, or if he is in fact DOA on the side of the trail and that machine is not running. So we'll see what we can find out on that as we go. But man, one thing that is for sure is a dominant performance being put in right now by Thad Duvall and that 989 machine, the Rockstar Racing Husqvarna, and in 2nd place his teammate Josh Strang there in the 2nd place position. You know, Rodney, just many years ago, Husqvarna used to dominate GNCC racing. A few years ago, we did see 2 of them on the podium. That was the first time, and actually, I think at one race we may have seen a Husqvarna podium sweep with Ryan Sipes, Thad Duvall, and Josh Strang, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if that was last season or the season before, but to see these guys again in those 1-2 positions, that just really shows Big White's coming back, and they're coming after the orange machine. KTM has ruled GNCC racing for a number of years here on the bike side of things, and definitely a force to be reckoned with now with those 2 guys riding out of that big Husqvarna truck. They're flexing their muscle here today at the John Penton GNCC.
Well, back to the Stu Baylor incident there in the pits, I do want to point out Grant Baylor had the same issue that Stu had the lap before whenever they came in and pitted. They had to bump start Grant to get him going back again, and from what I understand, that was caused by maybe whenever they were trying to spray out the radiator or something like that. That's what I kind of understood them to say in the update over there. So I'm wondering if maybe that wasn't the same issue that plagued Stu whenever they were trying to get his machine to refire.
It definitely is possible, but the funny thing about Stu is he came in and it did not appear that he shut the bike off, because I mean he was trying to do a gas and go. As we pointed out, he came in right on the rear wheels of Caleb Russell. And speaking of, we just got an update. Caleb Russell has closed the gap down from 47 seconds is what it was at the finish, now down to 30 seconds as they came by at the FMF PowerPoint. So we just got that update on the radio, figured we'd pass that along to you guys. But Stu Baylor was hard on the throttle, and he was charging, and he actually put a pass on Caleb Russell as Caleb Russell stopped for fuel. So Stu was trying to really get in and out on that pit stop. So you got to wonder if he just stalled it on his own, or did the machine shut off, or like you said, Rodney, was it a case of them trying to spray the radiators out and a little bit of water just kind of shutting things down?
Well, taking a look at this now, just amazing that gap. But look at the lap times, 38:38 for Thad Duvall. You look back to the second place position, a 39:34 and a 39:37 for Caleb Russell. Josh Strang and them right near identical lap times. There's your leader coming through now.
Josh Strang, that's our second place rider, the number 114, and that is at the FMF PowerPoint. I got a clock on that, and we were told 30 seconds back to Caleb Russell and possibly also Stu Baylor, that battle. We'll see if Stu Baylor, like you said, a man on a mission, the adrenaline flowing from having to push that machine, is that going to push him up? That white flag, they see that. They know it's a last lap sprint. We'll see just exactly what that gap is. Whoa, Rodney, 25 seconds now.
Yeah.
Caleb Russell has that gap down to 25, and we'll get a gap to Stu Baylor. Just restarted the clock there. So 25 seconds from your second place rider, Josh Strang, back to the third place rider, which is Caleb Russell. We're now at 10 seconds on Stu Baylor, and that is not him there, so this gap has opened back up again. He actually did momentarily take over that final podium place position, and look at this, Stu Baylor on the charge. We're looking at round about 24 seconds is what we've got, is the gap between Caleb Russell in third and Stu Baylor in fourth.
Well, that's changed by about 3 seconds. It was 21 seconds when they came through the finish line. Some lap traffic there, though it looked like that Stu was trying to negotiate, so that might have been part of the reason that we saw a little bit of difference in that. But wow, this final lap of racing, these guys have really the intensity levels rising so much. You don't see it so much, and that does not look like he is pushing like he is, and running lap times of 38:38. I mean, in all honesty, it looks like that more energy is being expelled by Josh Strang, who's nearly a minute slower back there in that second place position.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Thad Duvall, when we've always commented on Bad Thad, and when it used to be when Bad Thad was going fast, it was throttle to the stops, everything was crossed up, and every tree in the woods was scared. Nobody wanted to be a tree in the woods. They were realizing that Thad Duvall was on a mission. He could have just leveled any old oak tree out there because he was so wild. Well, what's happened is, you know, ever since a number of years ago, Thad really started calming things down, working on his racecraft, working on his mental preparation, and he has become a true threat to win, not only because of his speed, but because of how seriously he takes his career. There we see the 739, Trevor Bollinger, the Ghost Rider. It does not show up in anything ever, and there he is. He's on screen showing up in the 10th place overall position, and that would put him, I believe, at least as they check in. Whoa, look at this. We got a shakeup in the XC2 class. Josh Toth has, in fact, taken over the lead. We speculated that may be the case. He's taken over the lead and opened up a very, very, very big gap over Craig DeLong, who is now 2 minutes and 37 seconds behind. But Ben Kelly in second place, only 20 seconds behind Josh Toth in that XC2 Pro Lights class. So it is Toth, Kelly, and then DeLong. So DeLong led that thing all the way, and here at the end, it seems he's dropped back and lost quite a bit of time.
Well, Mikey Waynes and Dakota down there in the Teely Energy pits as they are awaiting the arrival of Grant Baylor, and I'm sure they're going to get a bird's eye view of what's taking place, and then we'll get a word with the mechanics there and find out just exactly what the scenario and situation is.
Yep, and in that upper left corner, we did just see the number 1 Josh Toth, and there is the number 530 of Ben Kelly. So that is not 20 seconds, folks. Ben Kelly putting on a charge in that XC2 Pro Lights class, coming after your leader, Josh Toth. So these two have been the guys that have really been putting the hammer down and battling this year. And, you know, today is no different. These guys have now distanced themselves away, although valiant effort by Craig DeLong. He has done, oh, look at this. There's your leader, Thad Duvall, the 989 Rockstar Racing Husqvarna through the Monster Mile. He's up that hill, and he is out of sight. He's going so fast, our cameraman can't even keep up with him. Sorry about that, folks. We'll wait and we'll watch. We know that gap to be somewhere in as they checked in at the finish line. It was 3 minutes and 38 seconds back to Josh Strang. The what seems to be the slinky effect right now is it going to be Stu Baylor who makes up the ground to battle for that final podium position with Caleb Russell as he was doing less than a lap ago before that little miscue in the pits set him back about 25 seconds? Or will it be Caleb Russell who picks things up and reels in Josh Strang to battle over that second place podium position? So the guys that are kind of really in limbo there are Strang in second place position, Caleb Russell in third, and Stu Baylor in fourth. Those guys are all battling over those 2, 3, 4 spots and all within striking distance of each other. Less than 45 seconds to 50 seconds separate all the three of them, where Thad Duvall, folks, he has really run away with this one. 3 minutes and 38 seconds as they checked in at the end of lap 4. He's on, as Rodney would say, the ride that dreams are made of. He's out there putting it down. He's hard charging, and he's really running away with this one and making it look somewhat effortless. Bad Thad is back, but it's a new Bad Thad. This is the Bad Thad that is smooth, he's calculated, and he gets the job done. Doesn't make it look flashy. There's no whips, there's no crazy throttle, there's no roost. It's just a smooth, calculated machine that's out there doing the job that he's hired to do and winning for the hometown fans. Everybody from you know, his hometown of Williamstown, West Virginia is tuned in. Here we see the Mohawk man, the 1, 2, 3 of Austin Lee. When we last saw him, he was around about the 13th place position, and I believe he was in 4th place in that XC2 Pro Lights class and appears to still be in that 4th place position. He is working his way through there and always keeps that Mohawk looking good on, I believe it's the M&E Racing, Honda, not Husqvarna. We got the Husky guys up front in the XC1 class, but Austin Lee on that Honda doing work here in the XC2 Pro Lights class. Had a great ride a few weeks ago going there in the X Factor GNCC in his home state of Indiana, and trying to back it up here with another solid top 5 in Millfield, Ohio today for the John Penton. So the big changes, like we said, Thad Duvall has really opened up the gap up front. Josh Strang holding strong there, now taking over that 2nd place spot where we had seen him in 3rd. Grant Baylor has dropped completely off the radar. He is not even checked in yet. He is now outside of the top 15 overall, I do believe. And we will wait and see if we get any kind of an update as to where exactly he might be. There we see Corey Buttrick now checking in. Hasn't made it quite to scoring yet, but once we get an opportunity to check in and see exactly where he's running at in the overall positions. Last we had seen he was in 11th in that XC1 Pro Bike class. Here we see now in the Monster Energy Mile at the 6 mile marker, Josh Strang, the 114 machine, has worked his way into camera view, and we'll get a gap to see exactly what it is. Didn't get a gap off of, you see him looking over his shoulder, and what he's looking for is the number 1 FMF KTM of Caleb Russell, and there he is, folks, 6 seconds, down to 6 seconds. Caleb Russell is slowly reeling him in and doing the best he can to try and get on that rear wheel. As we restart the clock here, 6 seconds is the gap from Josh Strang back to Caleb Russell. Now we'll wait and we'll see exactly what the gap back is to Stu Baylor. We're at 8 seconds from the time Caleb left our camera shot there. Now we're at 10. Oh, look at this, Stu Baylor. So again, what we had seen as to up, I believe, a 25-second gap is what we were looking at, Rodney. And he is, well, he's still got to make it up the hill, so we may still be kind of stable in that 25-second range. 24, 25, 26, 27, yep, so about 28 seconds. So it's actually opened up just a little bit, but a big change there in the gap from 2nd to 3rd. What we saw at scoring to be 47 seconds is now down to 6 seconds, Rodney.
That's crazy. Caleb Russell is definitely riding rails out here, and the Russell family farm is starting to feel, he's starting to feel it here, I think. These are the roots of where he grew up. There's no doubt about that. And honestly, probably not having the chance to race this thing any more than anybody else has, or even be on this property like this. But man, there's something about these soils that sometimes treat him so well and embrace him, and other times not so much. But today, they're giving him a big old hug here in the latter part of this race.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's it's really a function of the fact that he knows he and Thad Duvall are locked in a very torrid points battle. Oh, we're getting an update, Rodney. You want to take that one?
Yeah, Grant Baylor stuck in a mud hole. And what section was that in again?
John Penton.
He's Penton section, so it must be starting to deteriorate over there a little bit. I did hear there were some soft, boggy areas over there as well. So now Grant Baylor, insult to injury, as he got stuck in a mud hole.
Yeah, bike was overheating, and it is possible, obviously, that's why the bike was overheating, because he was stuck in a mud hole.
Right.
But nonetheless, overheating and now stuck in a mud hole. It sounds like they still have not been able to extract that Teely Racing KTM, and that is Grant, I believe, does ride a 450. That's a big, heavy machine, and Grant is not a small man himself, so that's a lot of material to get out of that mud hole, but I'm sure those guys are working hard trying to get him out of there. There we see Zach Nolan, one of our XC2 riders, coming through over at the 14-mile marker at the mulch pile. That is another Teely Racing rider riding that XC2 class. I believe is a 722 machine is his number. But Zach Nolan is a rider that really seems to do well when the conditions go poorly, and I think we actually had an opportunity to talk with him about just what kind of conditions he likes before we came racing today.
Yeah, every time we get a little bit of rain, I'm like, man, this might be my day. It might be my day. Last year at X Factor, it was definitely one of my days, and hopefully today can be like that. Yeah, every time we get.
All right, and there we see. Don't know who that was just going up there. Almost looked like Lane Michael, but it couldn't have been, or it shouldn't have been. That is. Oh, you know what? That may have been Josh Toth, and that is Ben Kelly there. Ben Kelly really struggling up that hill climb there in the Monster Mile. He's done a good job to close that gap down, and if that was in fact Josh Toth in front of him, that gap was only about 5 seconds, and we had seen it at 20, and then it looked like it was around 10 when we saw them last at the FMF PowerPoint. Unfortunately, Rodney, from here, we don't get to see them again until the mulch pile. So all the racing that they're going to do out there, all the dog fights, all the mud holes, all the hill climbs, we're just speculating and guessing.
Exactly, but the interesting thing about it is every lap that they've gone through there, something interesting has happened. We had obviously the first lap with the nose-to-tail battle going on with Thad and Grant. They come out basically wheel to wheel, and then a few seconds back comes Caleb Russell with a tree hanging off the side of his machine. Was the reports we got there from the racer staff, and of course, as this race has gone on, every lap something different happens. People make up time, people lose time. We lose people in that section, so it's going to be interesting to find out just exactly what kind of specialness this John Penton section brings this last lap.
Yeah, absolutely. And there we we can speculate, and it kind of makes it more fun, because we can there is, I believe that's Zach Nolan again right there, and he didn't quite get the rain he was wanting. He got it last night, but he's a rider. It's a strange combination, Zach Nolan. He never has goggles on, but he loves mud races. It does not make any sense whatsoever. I guarantee you, anytime you see this guy riding, he does start with goggles, don't get me wrong, but I don't believe he has ever finished a first lap with goggles on his face, let alone ever even bothered trying to put a second pair on. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Seen him race for years. He raced the 258 class for years. Actually had some XC2 podiums back when it was all two-strokes, and he's been, kind of in and out of this XC2 class for probably close to a decade now, and no matter what, no matter the conditions, no goggles. That's just how he rolls. Doesn't like them, doesn't need them, doesn't feel there's any purpose for him.
Yeah, when you're tough like Zach Nolan, I guess you don't need him, right? Well, very fortunate. It's something that I certainly, and I know you certainly wouldn't suggest anyone to do, but obviously he feels comfortable doing that. Johnny, let's real quick run through some of these classes. I haven't had a chance to focus on any of the amateur classes. We got a few minutes to do that, and before we do that, look at the condition of the Monster Mile now. That turn has gotten so wide today, and I mean, not that it wasn't wide yesterday, Johnny, but look how much wider it is, and it doesn't really seem to be in any better condition than when we started earlier today.
Well, basically just a quick synopsis, Rodney, we can kind of drift and skid almost like cars on these flat, slick surfaces, where these guys, you have to get squared up. You just can't drift a motorcycle around a corner, especially on an off-camber turn. So that's why we see these ruts form on the outside, and in some cases, like we saw Thad Duvall do earlier, they'll actually go way outside the track, which is perfectly legal because they're going longer, and then they'll turn and they'll get a straight run up the hill, and that's why we see these corners just getting pushed so much wider throughout the race.
Well, we started this weekend out. It's been a big, big weekend. We're going to finish a big weekend as well, Johnny. And, redemption, if you will, on the part of Thad Duvall, if he's able to pull this win off today, which looks like that's what's going to be the case. But, Friday, when we started this weekend, we knew that this was going to be a monumental weekend. We had something new come to GNCC Racing, and it was the EMTB, the Electric Mountain Bike Racing Championship. And though there weren't an abundance of riders, there was about 15 or so riders that came out and participated in, including Charlie Mullins, Lane McCormick was in it, even Talon Hawk, who is Barry Hawk's son, was in that, and of course that guy right there, that is Leon Hansen, and Leon actually just come out and thought he'd give it a try, and I think that the successes that he enjoyed there today was on Friday was a lot more than what he anticipated it was going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Charlie Mullins was kind of the ringer everybody assumed was going to just kind of do work and put it down and win the thing going away. But Leon actually gave him a battle for the first couple laps, kept it somewhat close, was able to keep Charlie in sight, and then Charlie actually experiencing a former GNCC champion on the motorized version of two wheels. Mullins was kind of pacing himself. I think he did have a big mountain bike race yesterday. This was on Friday, so he's kind of saving himself a little bit. But nonetheless, Leon Hansen coming through, getting the win and putting the hammer down on those guys, getting the inaugural overall win at the E-Mountain Bike GNCC Racing style. So congratulations to him, and I'm sure we'll see this grow and grow and grow. This was our schoolboy class, I believe is what they called it, and these kids were quite an excited. There we see Wes Stone, an ATV rider that was out there in the plus 30 class. He had an e-bike and decided he'd go out and give it a shot. So a lot of guys out there having a lot of fun. There's Leon leading the way, the overall and pro class winner. And, a lot of fun out there on Friday. It was a good time for sure.
Well, I believe that we laid the groundwork for something huge to start beginning here in GNCC Racing. We'll be back doing it again at Snowshoe, but at the Checkers, in 1 hour of racing, Leon Hansen actually was able to pull away with the win and take the Checkers, and of course the first ever EMBT race right here at the GNCC.
Here with our winner today.
It was a great time.
In the e-bike race, the very first e-bike race, Leon Hansen, man. What did you think?
It was fun. I mean, I'm pretty stoked that they let me do this as far as being out. I'm just at work. But, no, I was pumped. I had a good time.
So, man, you do some enduro racing out on the West Coast, man. How does this, out here, not quite East Coast, but Midwest, Eastern United States, man, what does this compare to out West?
There's no mud over there. Like this, yesterday was the first time I've ridden in mud, so that was a big difference.
So you're gonna come back? We do it again?
Well, I'm here every weekend, so if the boss man lets me, sure.
All right, you heard that, boss man. You gotta let Leon race, man. There's your winner today in the very first e-bike race, Leon Hansen. All right, here with a familiar face to RacerTV, Lane McCormick, man. You took second in the overall today, first in class.
Yeah, it felt good. I'm definitely surprised on how I finished. First lap, I was just staying behind first place in my class and paced myself, and then a few more laps I got into first and then just started pushing for an overall.
You did a heck of a job, man. You got some left in the tank for tomorrow and Sunday?
Yeah, I'll be resting tonight.
All right, Lane, get some rest, man. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on RacerTV with an overall tomorrow, right? All right, Lane McCormick right there, a second in today's overall. All right, here with Cody Taylor, our third place in the overall today, man. Cody Taylor, first of all, congratulations, a top 3 in the inaugural GNCC e-bike race, man. What'd you think?
Oh, man, it was a tough race. I've never rode an e-bike before. I definitely made a mistake coming in here and jumping on somebody's bike that I've never rode before. The bike was fighting me, I felt like, plus the mud out there. I'm not used to riding in that, but yeah, after 4 or 5 falls, I started getting the hang of the mud and just tried to finish the race, man. It was tough out there, but I definitely need to come in more prepared next time now that I know what it's like. Yeah, it was still quite a bit of fun.
So you do some racing, obviously, outside of this down south, man. What do you do outside of what you did here today?
Yeah, back at home, I race regular mountain bikes with no electric motors in Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, Arkansas, and stuff. It was just a couple weekends ago. I did nationals out there in Arkansas, and we do that. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fitness in there, and that's just kind of what I do. I've kind of moved out of the motorized sports for a little while, take a little break on that, and picked up the bikes. My wife, she rides with me and races sometimes as well. So I figured coming out here, I come out here with and ride co-pilot and side-by-sides regularly. So figured that'd give me something to do while I'm here.
Well, I'll tell you, Johnny, that was certainly a treat. You participated in that for yourself, and I remember yesterday talking to you, I believe, in the pre-race interviews, you said you had a higher heart rate than you anticipated you were going to have for that particular event.
Yeah, I came in with the mindset of knowing, obviously, my main work is supposed to be done on Saturday around 1 o'clock, and this was just kind of a fun thing. I felt it was cool that GNCC put that on, gave us the opportunity to do it, and I think it's something that's going to grow and a great thing for bringing people into the sport of GNCC racing. And speaking of that KTM water truck is stuck in that soft soil right there. That thing is buried. They're going to need to get a dozer down there to push that out.
Look how dry it looks.
Yeah, that's deceiving. It just goes to show you got to be careful the lines you pick. So I don't know if that was Jeff Russell driving that or who we had in there, but somebody.
I'm going to go out on a limb. No, that wasn't Jeff.
It couldn't have been Jeff. No, actually, it probably wasn't because Jeff knows this ground quite well growing up here as the family farm. But nonetheless, it was a great time, and it ended up being, a lot more physically demanding than I had anticipated. I intentionally signed up for an amateur class, 40 over 40, and thought I could just kind of go out there and cruise around and win it. Did end up winning it, but it took a whole lot more effort than I had anticipated. Higher heart rate and longer sustained high heart rate than I had yesterday in the ATV race.
Well, at this point in the race a year ago, things were really starting to fall apart as we saw Thad Duvall leading the race. And, of course, with that, let's take a look at some of last year's highlights. And we'll lead up to this particular point because at this point in the race to the end last year, certainly the face of the race changed. But as we took off on this one last year, that was actually who got the early lead?
Russell Bob at KTM there, and then Ricky Russell sneaking around the outside of him, taking over the lead. But look at this right away, the 989 Rockstar Racing Husqvarna of Caleb Russell. Of Thad Duvall, my bad, brain's jello, sneaking his way up on the inside there, but Ricky takes it back over. So Ricky Russell was your early leader, Thad Duvall in second, Russell Bob at third, Josh Strang fourth, Grant Baylor also up in there. And here we see this is last year, and this is Caleb Russell working his way through some of the dustier sections. As we can see, this is the mulch pile, but we were running it backwards. And you said it has a different face every year, and there it is. Looks quite a bit different 365 days ago.
Yeah, most certainly does. And as you pointed out, we did have Caleb Russell out front. And Thad Duvall, man, this was at the point in juncture in the season last year we were coming off X Factor where Caleb had finished, I think, 14th place. He lost a bunch of points in that round. And Thad was smelling blood in the water. He was circling like a shark out there, and he was trying to take every advantage as he could that day here at John Penton GNCC. Well, as the race wore on, conditions somewhat similar to what we're looking at today, at least in the open field sections with the dust and stuff, but wetter so in the woods, but not as wet as what it is today. But whenever we start winding down to the end of this one, Johnny, that's whenever things really started getting interesting. That John Penton section, again, always causing a whole bunch of turmoil, it seems like, in the latter part of the race for some riders.
Absolutely, and Thad Duvall was leading the way there. We saw him on screen. That was Josh Strang's bike that was puffing some white smoke. Ryan Sipes behind him, but leading the way. Look at this battle. There it is. Thad Duvall leading the way, and right behind him, Caleb Russell. These guys were battling up every single section. That was the FMF PowerPoint last year. Here we see our third place rider at the time, Grant Baylor, the 314 machine, then on a Husqvarna, now on that T-Lee Racing KTM. So the top three riders at one point today were the top three, same as last year. Here he comes, the 989 machine, Thad Duvall coming in. He takes the checkered flag for the win at the time. Unfortunately, later we had some video evidence that showed he had inadvertently gotten off the course due to a fan pointing him a line that was without the boundaries of the course, and was penalized 2 positions back to third, which moved the second place rider, Grant Baylor, into the win. And unfortunately today does not look like things are going to turn out nearly as well for Grant Baylor, as he is now well back behind. Here we see this guy's got a pretty cool souvenir. How about that, Rodney?
That's a souvenir right there from former champion Josh Strang. Got the autographed side number placed there for him. He's pretty psyched. There's no doubt about that. Hanging out down by the finish line. And Josh Strang right now is, well, last report was holding on to second place, but let's check it.
That's a pretty cool shot right there. That's the guy that's been bringing us some of these cool camera angles. Get to see everything from above, a bird's eye view, and there he goes. Just like that, he's gone. That's our drone operator. He's giving us the shots from well above the course here and showing us just what this place looks like from a view like that.
Wow, just beautiful. Again, next Saturday and Sunday, it'll be the youth regional qualifier for the Northeast, and actually that'll be the regional qualifier, and that means that the top 6 riders will be going out to Loretta Lynn's in August, so you might want to come back and check that out. Also, if you're wanting to check out some great GNCC on TV, June 3rd, the GNCC from Camp Coker will be on NBC Sports. That'll be June 3rd, just a few days from now. June 9th, the X Factor on NBC Sports Network. The 9th and 10th will be the Tomahawk GNCC, and that'll be right here on RacerTV.com when we'll be going live from Alpine, New York. Then June 23rd and 24th, the Snowshoe GNCC on RacerTV.com as well. We'll have an e-mountain bike race there leading into that event. Also, we'll have the ISD fundraising golf tournament, which you need to get online, get signed up for now so you can go have a good time and help support the International 6-Day event efforts there by Team USA.
Oh, that's a good question. If you're going to do the golf tournament and race the e-mountain bike race, those might overlap. That's going to be a busy day on Friday. I might not even be able to race the quad on Saturday. I'm going to have too much stuff going on Friday. The way this season's been going, I should stick to e-mountain bikes and golfing, so.
No, I don't believe that, Johnny.
Oh, it's been pretty bad.
I know you feel like that, but you've seen some glimpses of great. We'll see more out of you, buddy. I got faith in you.
Oh, look at this. Here, if you want to know how tough this track is right now and just how tough these conditions are and how hot it is out there, Rodney, what do you think these guys are doing?
They're waiting on Thad Duvall.
They are waiting on Thad Duvall. They want to see the checkered flag. They don't want to quit, but they also don't want to do another lap. So that is right there before the finish. That's the final downhill jump before the finish line section, and they're working their way in there. But they're going to wait until they see that 989 machine tucked by, and then they're going to say, "Okay, cool, we'll call it in from here." And it should be coming up here pretty soon. We're at 3 hours and 8 minutes. Wow, Rodney, the time's really gotten away from us, and we're near the end of this one now. We should be seeing Thad Duvall within the next 2 minutes or so pop in at the mulch pile, and quick here within the next 3 to 4 minutes at the finish line.
Yep, within 5 minutes we should be seeing checkers fly. 3 hours, 8 minutes, and 30 seconds into this race. That should put us in the 3:13 range, I think, whenever it's all said and done. And, well, we'll just have to wait and see whether or not that's the case. And if Thad Duvall has been able to maintain and keep this pace up front in the #1 spot, which he has done all day long. Like we say, you never can count the chickens before they hatch. We saw it last year with, and on numerous occasions with other riders, but even I know Caleb Russell was looking for redemption last year when he had the electrical problems. He falls way back. Grant Baylor gets by and gets the second place position at the checkers on that one, and Caleb was able to get back going. Here we are this year, a little different scenario, and different things can happen again. And I'm not talking just for Thad or Josh or anybody else. This final lap, this late in the race, over 3 hours in, the machine's starting to take a beating. It's gone through some really hectic terrain, if you will. And not only that, the heat and just the conditions themselves have to be taking a toll on the riders themselves. Now, some riders may not be as affected as much as others, but there are enough riders out there that are being affected. That could literally change the face of this race.
Absolutely, and we've kind of, Rodney, I'll admit I'm as guilty as anybody, kind of checked this one in the win column for Thad Duvall, but if we've learned anything in GNCC racing, they're never over till they're over. These races are won and lost by inches, they're won and lost by minutes, but more importantly, they're never won or lost until you cross the checkered flag. That's all there is to it. Right now, Ricky's still waving that white flag, and some of these guys, as they cross the line, they're going to take a look at that clock and go, no, I'm sorry, you meant checkered, 3 hours, 10 minutes. I'm done, right? But the way this works is the checkered flag goes to the leader when he comes through, which we should be seeing him come in here, as we said, about 4 minutes now, 3 minutes. We should be seeing Thad Duvall work his way through.
That last rider through, the 371, actually no, the 354, Ryan Cunningham, Bet A30 Plus class rider, a 1 hour and 15 minute lap time. He's already 3 hours into this race. That means
4 hours and 25 minutes.
Oh, mercy. Yeah, I don't know if I'd worry. I mean, at that point.
You got to go, though, man. If you're in it to win it, you can't give up. You pace yourself. You go back to the truck. You fill up with fuel. You get a drink, and you say, hey, you guys go ahead and put those burgers on. I'll be back here in about an hour and a half.
I'm going to need one. And just checking out to see where that particular rider happens to be in the standings. As we were watching Ryan Cunningham. He's second place.
Look at this. They're having discussions with scoring as they come through. Oh, look at this. Checkered flag in hand. They're saying that he is 30 seconds away from the 14-mile marker. So we're going to wait and we're going to watch. Thad Duvall should be popping on screen here at the 14-mile marker just about any second. And this should be your leader. And there he was. I think that was him. Yes, that is. That is Thad Duvall, the 989 Rockstar Racing Husqvarna, and he is working his way through the mulch pile one last time. Sure doesn't look like he's let up much. The front fender's just about broken off the machine. We did see his side shroud flapping last year. This year it's the front fender, so
I
apparently...
wonder if that's just not mud, that maybe bouncing on a tree, but I almost have to think that could be the heavy mud that might be weighting that fender down.
But Thad Duvall hates the mud, remember? He just always wins in it.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Not saying he doesn't win on dry days, but it seems like whenever the conditions get muddy, Thad is the go-to guy. He seems to be the guy that can really, just really kind of charge through the treacherous conditions. And again, unfortunately, folks, what you're seeing may not really be indicative of just how bad things are out in the woods, but I assure you they're bad.
Well, I can point that out. Ryan Cunningham, Vet A 30-plus second-place ride out of Murray City, Ohio. We saw him come in there a few moments ago. 1 hour, 15 minutes, 28-second lap time. And that tells you that the Vet A riders, when they're riding lap times like that, it's pretty challenging out there. Well, right now, turning our focus and attention to the finish line. We're about a minute out before we should be seeing Thad Duvall and his redemption ride here at the Wiseco John Penton GNCC, the halfway point of this championship season. And I'm telling you, this has got to be a great time to get things rolling in your favor. You gain a few points here heading in. You got 2 more rounds. Maybe you can get lucky and gain some points in the next couple of rounds. And if that be the case, do kind of like what happened last year when we went into the summer break, leaving Caleb Russell with a whole lot to think about, Thad Duvall with a lot to be excited about.
And that's another point to ponder here as we wait and we watch to see who exactly is that second place ride when they emerge from here. Is it the 114 of Josh Strang as it was last lap, or is Caleb Russell, the number 1 FMF KTM, been able to take over that second place ride? When we last saw him, he was 6 seconds behind, coming from 47 about 6 miles earlier. So now they've been gone for 9 more miles. How was he able to make up time, or was Strang able to stretch it back out? One thing that is no longer really in question, front fender's gone. He doesn't need it anymore. It's not even flopping. If you're going to win it, you win it big, and you win it without a front fender if you're Thad Duvall.
Leaving it all on the track, and we hear that he did hit a tree, but regardless, the front fender is gone. It doesn't matter, like you say. It doesn't matter. Thad Duvall, he likes to finish out like this. I mean, he looks like he literally left everything on the racetrack, including that front fender of that Husqvarna, as he makes his way onto the moto track. One final time, motocross track he's been racing since he was 4 years old. As a part of District 11 racing here in amateur motocross, as well as amateur hare scrambles racing. But finally, Thad Duvall comes here home basically to Sunday Creek Raceway to get the redemption from the win last year that seemed to elude him, but not so much.
Oh, look at this!
Battle is on for second. It is Josh Strang with the lead over Caleb Russell in this battle for second place position, but they are wheel to wheel, folks. They're coming through the mulch pile right now, side to side. Russell trying to dive underneath, but good line choices as Thad Duvall takes the win here at the Wiseco John Penton GNCC. Will he be able to gain 8 points or 3 points in the championship as this battle for second place is burning up, heading toward the motocross track right now?
And what a battle it is, Rodney. These guys are leaving it all out there. Thad Duvall left it all out there, like you said, including that front fender. We're definitely pumped for his win. Again, a big gap, but those guys are out roundabout now the 14.5-mile marker, working their way to the finish, and they are wheel to wheel battling. But right now, the fruits of his labor are coming. He gets nice cold water. He gets to take that helmet off, and at some point, he's going to reach down. There it is, the fist bump from Chatty Daddy, Chad Duvall, who's also won races here in the pro side of things on the ATV, and he's got to be a pretty happy guy right now as Thad Duvall getting his next one, his second win of Yes. Second win of 2018. I was pretty sure it was, but for some reason I was drawing a blank there.
I'm pretty sure I'm right there on the same page with you. But here we go, my friends. Thad Duvall.
Look, he's looking up. He wants to see. He knows those guys are coming in. He's taking a look up himself. They just pointed and said, hey, those guys are coming in. There's a big points battle coming in. Could go either way.
3 points is a lot whenever it comes down to the championship, and every point counts, especially at the midway point of the season like this for Thad Duvall. So he waits patiently. We wait with bated breath to see
Here they are. We see him over here, Rodney. We can see him out the side of the booth. It is still Strang in second and Caleb Russell in third. They are wheel to wheel and battling. They are literally scrubbing each other's tires, folks. Every turn all over each other. Strang puts it in. Caleb gets underneath him. Look at this. Here they go. They're down VP Fuels Pro Row. Rodney, take this one. I'm going to have a heart attack.
Dropping out of the Pro Road now into the Moto Track section here in just a moment. But right now, Caleb Russell shadowing the rear wheel of Josh Strang. And Josh has been able to answer at every corner that Caleb has tried to ask that question, can I get around? He says no. Back into this small wood section one final time. Lap traffic, both riders getting by A-OK through the final wood section. The Moto Track could be the critical point. Both these riders loving to race and ride motocross. Caleb Russell may have a little bit of an extra edge. We'll see if that's the case or not as we are in the final.
I don't know if he's close enough, Rodney. Nope. I don't know if he's close enough to make a move.
It's going to take a mistake, I think, at this point on that behalf of the 114 of Josh Strang. But how about it for Josh Strang right now, getting that ride in today? This is one that he has needed as well. And to be able to go face-to-face and head-to-head with Caleb Russell like this down to the wire is going to be a major confidence boost for this former champion as well. And we may have a new player when it comes to GNCC racing when we return in 2 weeks. It's Josh Strang takes second place in a heated battle with Caleb Russell, and with that, another 3 points is gained by the 989 of Thad Duvall in the championship points race. And though it does not necessarily put them in a position where they're close to being tied, it certainly gets them a lot closer, and it makes Thad Duvall a lot more excited and anticipating what the next 2 rounds can bring.
Look at this. Josh Strang has to lay down. He is done. He literally left it all out on the track. You could see he was really wanting somebody to take that bike from him when he came across the finish line. We see his, I believe she's 16 months pregnant, his wife. So those guys are, they left it all out there. Caleb looked disgusted, but Josh Strang looked very happy and exuberant to come across that line in the second place spot. There is Caleb Russell going back to get cleaned up for the podium. Josh Strang, they're getting him water. He has got to be dehydrated, got to be exhausted, but what a battle down to the finish between those two guys. We've seen them battle so many times over wins, over championships, and today it was over second at the John Penton GNCC.
Well, you know what? That was as important as any win that Josh Strang could have, I think, at this juncture in the championship, because Josh has been searching for a day like this for a long, long time, and he, even though it didn't, things started out okay, it didn't look like he was going to have the day that he ended up having, that's for sure. So with that being said, this is a sign of some good things that possibly could be on the horizon. And with that, the confidence level, the speed, he knows he's got it. Now, the endurance might be another question for him at this particular point, but that's something that he can work on and something that he can attain. This could put another player into this whole thing. And if not for the championship this year, for wins, which is certainly going to mix things up between Caleb Russell and Thad Duvall, and could play favor in Thad Duvall by the end of the championship.
Absolutely, Rodney. Another player makes things more interesting, and we can't forget about Grant Baylor. He was up in the heat in the mix of this one all day today until an unfortunate, we don't know if it was a bike issue or him getting stuck, but he was right there in that second place spot. There we see Caleb Russell getting undressed under the awning of his motorhome there. He's going to get cleaned up and cooled down. I'm sure these guys are way overheated, way hot, and I think that is a very, very, very frustrated Caleb Russell, judging by his. He doesn't look nearly as exhausted as he does angry.
I have to agree, and I also have to wonder, I'm surprised that we didn't see a push out of Caleb earlier in the race. It wasn't until the last basic hour that we actually saw him start to pick things up, and you have to wonder maybe if he started a few minutes earlier, if things might have turned out a little bit different. I'm sure he's wondering as well, but no,
you want to talk about dedication. You see Ken Hill laying on the ground there taking a shot underneath of Josh Strang's bike to get the photo. Somewhere that photo will be worth big bucks. He's got Josh Strang laying on the ground. He himself is laying on the ground, and he took the picture through the front wheel of that Rockstar Racing Husqvarna. There we see Ben Kelly Don't know, is that our leader or is that our second place rider in XC2? Ben Kelly and Josh Toth were very, very close together when we saw them last. There is Thad Duvall. That guy does not look like he's too worn out. He looks real happy putting that medal on, and he's going to go up on the podium, or actually he's probably going to go in front of our camera with Mikey Waynes right now and tell us a little bit about how he got it done today.
He most certainly is, as we head down to the victory lane with Mikey Wayne standing by with Bad Thad Duvall.
You're absolutely right, Rodney. Bad Thad Duvall sums it up, man. I asked you just a second ago, was that the greatest race you've ever ran?
Yeah, for sure. You know, it was just one of those days where everything was clicking, and it was super good till the last lap right in front of my dad. There was a gnarly hill climb, and just I messed up and fell and had to go all the way back down to the bottom, turn around and go back up. But other than that, man, it was like, it was a dream ride. It was all day long. It was just super. I had such good lines, and just, man, it was like I remembered how to ride ruts again. And it's just like growing up, I was just, man, I'm thankful to grow up riding mud like I did. And just, man, I had so much fun today. It was just, I don't know, everything was clicking. The bike was awesome. You know, huge thanks to Leon Hansen at WP Suspension. He came to my house this week, and we tested, and conditions were so similar to this. It was awesome. And, you know, I'm really excited to get a win here and go to Odessa, to one of my next favorite tracks. So I just, man, keep clicking them off now. Got the momentum, and, you know, it's, you know, when they called my name at the start, there was so many people who cheered. It was just like, man, it lit a fire, and it was like, man, I got to win for these people, and it was awesome all day long. It was, their people were going crazy everywhere, and, you know, it was, I love winning at this place. It's one of my favorite places to win. You know, I grew up here riding, and, you know, I've been riding here since the PW50, so to come here and win in front of all my family and friends and win like that, it's awesome for sure.
Man, I think about last year, the pink elephant in the room, right? The drama that was surrounding that one. So how much better does that make today feel?
A lot sweeter. You know, last year, you know, I think I won by a couple minutes too, and just, yeah, things didn't go, things went south. But, you know, it was a new day today, and I just want to go out and prove this is one of my favorite tracks. So, you know, I think I did that. You know, off the start, I got a good start and got around Josh, and, you know, me and Grant kind of pulled away, and I kept looking back, and I couldn't really see Caleb, so I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go, and if I get tired, I get tired. So I charged as long as I could, and I felt good the whole race, and it just, man, it feels good to win.
Thad, congratulations. Bad Thad Duvall right there with a convincing win.
Well, I'll tell you what, folks, that is certainly a lot of monkeys off that rider's back, I am quite sure, as Toth is in. So, wow, what a day, and what a great win there for Thad Duvall, and big stuff there, as we said, with Caleb finishing back in the number 3 spot. That's not necessarily going to put him in position to win the championship, but, man, 8 points certainly means a lot. And Josh Toth has checked in the number 5 overall position. Johnny Gallagher joining us here. A little bit of a change on that one there in the last lap, as we saw that one on the horizon, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a heck of a battle going on. Josh Toth was leading the way, but Ben Kelly was in second, only 20 seconds behind him, and at one point it seemed like it was down to less than 10. Ended up being 1 minute and 57 seconds. Josh Toth was able to stretch it out. So again, is that a case of Josh Toth really stoking the coal to it, or was Ben Kelly a victim of that Penton section? There we see a guy that has absolutely left everything out on the track today. Josh Strang, the 114 Rockstar Racing Husqvarna rider. We saw him come across the line and literally collapse with exhaustion, and you know, he's got a lot of things on his mind right now. He's got a baby on the way. Was probably waiting for that pit board to say, hey, my water broke, but it didn't happen today. But what did happen is he put himself back on the podium and in that second place position.
All right, let's head down to Mikey Waynes, who's with Josh Strang in the winner's circle.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, down here with Josh Strang. Josh, I'm going to keep it brief for you, brother. You're sucking on a lot of air right now. But, wow, what a wild finish, and your best finish of the season so far.
Yeah, it's the closest I've ever been to being sick over the finish line. So I probably shouldn't have just thought on that last lap I could keep 45 seconds on Caleb. That's why he's the champ. I think anyone else 45 seconds on the last lap would have been fine, you know, but I think we were just before the John Penton section. I saw it was down to 16. I was like, man, I better start trying to go. He caught me in the John Penton section, and I kept making mistakes. And I don't know, I just was lucky to stay in front of him.
Josh, you put on a hell of a show, man. We're going to let you get rehydrated up. There's your second place finisher today, Josh Strang.
Wow, I tell you what, I have to think that if he actually
If his baby is actually born today, they ought to call him Deuce. Just for the second place position that he got here today at John Penton. But man, he was spent. I mean, he gave and like you said, left it all out there on the racetrack. But what that does, I mean, that is, I think it's got to be a spark for Josh Strang fans, the freight train fans, if you will. They saw the glimpse of the old Josh Strang that we've been looking for so long. And, you know, maybe this might be the first of many glimpses we're going to see here in the future. And
speaking of the
that's
future,
the case.
look at this guy.
That's the future
right here.
Yep.
Josh Toth, our XC2 Pro Lights winner. He went into that last lap with only a 20-second gap on his teammate Ben Kelly and ended up coming in with a 1 minute and 50-second gap over second place and a 5th place overall. One of his best rides of the season so far. And on a hot day, you can see him pouring that water over his head. There we see Stu Baylor sitting on his helmet. He says, "Okay, guys, I'm just going to sit here and relax." Took that shirt off, letting it all breathe. Big Baylor letting it all breathe.
That's it, Big Baylor. I love this guy, man. He is so animated and such a great character and personality. There's no doubt about it. But wow, as this race day wraps up, I do have a couple of birthdays that I want to send out. Big John Knox turning the new
60.
The new 40.
Yeah, the new 40.
The new 40, that's what he told me. So that makes me 29 now, as a matter of fact. But anyway, happy 60th birthday to Big John, and happy 15th birthday to Chloe Atkins, which is my basic stepdaughter. And I just want to wish her a happy birthday as well. And happy day for everybody out here. I tell you, you can't see the smiles on their face right now, but you know deep down inside somewhere, Johnny, just finishing this race in a podium position finish or taking the win, these guys have got to be smiling monumentally inside. And this guy smiles an awful lot, and he's got a lot to be smiling about, like you said, tracking him down on the last lap. And let's find out how it all broke down as we head back down with Mikey Waynes.
Thank you, Rodney. Down here with Josh Toth, man. Another win. You're chipping away at him.
Yeah, that's the plan. They're not easy.
No, they're not, man. You know what? You joked about it on social media. You had a mustache up until a few days ago. I talked to you about it this morning. First of all, where the heck is the mustache? And are you more aerodynamic without it?
Well, I shaved it probably 2 weeks ago. I can't grow one that quick, so.
You and me both, brother. Man, we'll talk about the race today, man. What did it take to come back in this one and capture a win?
Yeah, I got it off to a good start, got in the lead pretty early, and that definitely helped me out huge going into the Penton section on the first lap, and just having a clear track out there, it was brutal, and I thought for sure they were going to just pull that section after the first lap just because the amateurs, I knew it was going to be tough, but they kept it in, and it was a demanding track. That was tough, and that's the way off-road race should be, I guess.
Absolutely right. Ladies and gentlemen, Josh Toth, your winner of the XC2.
Yeah, these guys, Rodney, these guys are a little delirious after the race. Josh Toth talking about getting the whole shot and leading it the whole way. Actually, unless our scoring was wrong, it was Craig DeLong who led this one for about an hour and a half. I don't know. Again, maybe he's a little delirious from the heat, or maybe it's scoring issues we were having with Trevor Bollinger. But Josh Toth was out there in that second place spot, was able to chase down Craig DeLong, take over the lead, and led it from there. Ben Kelly gave chase, but in the end, ultimately, Josh Toth, the defending XC2 Pro Lights champion, comes through with another win here today.
Lap times averaging right around the 40-minute mark today. 5 laps of racing. Traditionally, we go 6 laps, and we're still right at or under 3 hours of racing. Today, 5 laps put us with the winner, a 3-hour, 14-minute, and 40-second race. And wow, that is that extra 15, 20 minutes, Johnny. I mean, it's got to take its toll on these guys for sure. But what about the guys that we saw that were just ahead of these guys that were running those hour and 15-minute lap times that we were seeing there? This is going to be a while clearing this racetrack, that's for sure.
Well, that's just it, Rodney. You know, a lot of times people ask, well, I thought the bike race is a 3-hour race. And you'll see sometimes they're, 2 hours 40 minutes, 2 hours 41, 2 hours 44. Why don't they send them another lap? And then some of the tracks that, sometimes obviously they have to make these calls earlier in the races. But what people don't understand is the length of the tracks, and people are always crying, we need, more technical tracks and longer tracks. Well, today was super technical and super long. Look what happened. They were left with the tough decision of, do we run 2.5 hours or do we go 3:15? Like, those are our 2 options. There's nothing in between. They opted to go with the longer race, and you can see it looks like a war zone there at the finish line. It's virtually triage.
It is, and how many changes took place in that last lap? I mean, I'm sure there were a few. We saw a lot of changes. So honestly,
that third hour, and I think that's what separates GNCC racing apart from all the rest, is that third hour. That's what it takes to really win a GNCC. And let's head back down to winner's circle with Mikey Waynes again.
Thanks, guys. Down here with Ben Kelly. Man, Ben, you're sucking on some air, too. This John Penton GNCC getting the best of you guys, but you're able to come away with a second.
Yeah, it was brutal out there. I mean, I knew it was going to be technical, especially since they decided to keep the John Penton in. And I mean, I was happy that they did, but it was tough. I had a mid-pack start, but I was just rushing it too much, and I'd pass some guys and then crash. I did that 3 times, just took the wind out of me, and so I slowly got in a groove and just got close to Josh near the end, the second to last lap, but used all my energy and just he dropped me on that last lap. I had all I could to stay upright. I mean, I fell a couple more times and got stuck in some bottlenecks and just couldn't even push, so I just rode it in and was happy with second today.
Ben, you did a heck of a job, man. Congratulations to you. Ben Kelly right there, second today in the XC2.
Well, there's no doubt about it, folks. The John Penton GNCC lived up to its name as we gave you one of the toughest races that, well, the GNCC series has seen in quite some time, and especially this season, as you saw it on the looks of all the faces as they come off that racetrack. And that's what GNCC racing is all about, my friends. And at the halfway point, the tables may be turning as far as GNCC racing is concerned. We'll know more as we roll through the next few weeks, as we'll roll into, obviously, the Tomahawk GNCC and then Snowshoe shortly after that. Folks, don't forget, get signed up for the ISDE fundraiser golf tournament prior to Friday, prior to the Snowshoe GNCC. But right now, actually, we're going to head on back down to the winner's circle area, I believe, as maybe getting a word in with Caleb Russell. But as we were saying, this race has certainly offered us a lot of great things, a lot of wonderful things to talk about and think about in the future. And what does the future hold? Well, come back and join us again in 2 weeks as we roll into New York with round 8 of the AMSOIL GNCC. On behalf of all of us here at Racer TV, Mikey Waynes, and of course Johnny Gallagher, I'm Rodney Tomlin saying good day, everybody.